We're going to do this quickly. They want me to put my hearing aids on. I don't want to. We're going to telescope the pole. So I was just thinking about it. Because some guy was like, yo, I like explosions and shit. And he posted a video today. You might have seen him over there. I don't know if you saw him really briefly there. But I was like, oh, right, cameras. And then, like, picking up and sensing various, datas of crappy light signals. I was like, well, if you want a full spectrum, cheap as fuck, like, done up sort of like camera sensor, then you use plasma. All right, plasma is always the better one. So it's like you'll have constructive interference, or you'll have like a electro. Goddamn motherfucking bitch cunt. You have a electrostatic or electromagnetic. Anyways, it's sort of like with photons and tube TVs, except it has a collapsing field between the electromagnetic or electrostatic of the plasma. Now, as a result, it happens to elicit a increase of a given pulse signal of the steady state of the plasma's photonic signal, meaning the light that it emits in a steady state consistent, at this given type of volt that's inputted to keep it in current to a plasma, means that you can ultimately use it as a sensor. But it has to be contained in something or whatever, right? And so, but it's cheap. They're very cheap, right? To be able to be made to effectively capture any kind of light. So, like ionizational, gamma rays, they make electrons flow more easily through various types of compounds, right? Well, when you ultimately have an electromagnetic field and an electrostatic field in the area, then you get what is essentially the same equivalent thing happening, right? You can create an increase of various light, or you can have it create a conduit through the given plasma. And a lot of people don't know about this, but plasma is something that you can use as an electrical circuit cable. You know what I mean? It's conductive. So it's like you can use that. But that's the cheap one, right? Like it's usually pretty easy, with a little bit of, glass, quartz, whatnot, and some cables around it. You can create a pretty universal from radio waves. It's just a certain amount of thickness and the right setup of field arrays, all right, which effectively will interact appropriately at those given wavelengths, which is the whole reason why you will do that, right? Now, that means this given distance, this given thickness, this given distance between the two plates, and so on and so on, and you have to put coils there anyways. So, it's pretty easy to actually do it. Most people tend to not think about it like that, but, it's really actually pretty easy. The only problem is that you have to then go, okay, here's a bunch of programming I now need to have. Right, I have to input this light, this light, this light, this light, that light, this light, and this polarization, this, and then I have to have this angle, that angle, that angle, this, so on, so on, so on, so on, so on, so on. And if you want to capture that to a given signal that you will then use as a binary interpretable digital to your, thing that you're probably watching on, then that's the programming that you have to have. Which is all it really is. Like, for what it's worth, all of them. It's like, here's a given signal. Here's a whatever steady state. So, typically a given type of constructive interference that is already there going through, or a type of similar electromagnetic or electrostatic current is released and increased at various wavelengths and propagation at various, types of movement throughout. It's pretty easy to actually get the vast majority. In fact, it's really cheap and easy to get all of the wavelengths that you're looking for to be sensed. You just have to have the programming for it to do that. But what they end up doing in some of the more secretive, like high. Oh my God, look at all the technologies in advance that they got. It turned into, okay, so we got to get graphite, right? And then we have to create like this polymerized fucking ridiculous. It's an iodine, hydrogen. There's let's see here, what is it? Fluorine and fucking chlorine and a couple of other fucking shit. Like, actually, I should get that up on my screen again because I just went through it a little bit earlier. But it's like, all right, periodic. It's periodic. Periodic. Oh, that's right. It was nitrogen. Anyways, so it's like nitrogen. They had to use a sulfur and oxygen cut off. There's hydrogen. So it's essentially repeating fluorine, chlorine, iodine, and nitrogen with a hydrogen, and then they'll use an oxygen, sulfur that like basically cuts off a given type of repeating structure, and then it creates, because of the way they have to do it, because it's effectively explosive. Like, so like they have it really hot, and then it gets forced into the internal, like a little flask, reaction flask, and that becomes an explosive that then fires into like this bed of a substrate that's effectively made to cool it off rapidly, but also keep it under a given type of pressure, but also, shocker, force out a large amount of the different nitrogens, oxygens, and sulfurs and solids, right? And so it has a lot of heat and pressure, and it fires to this substrate, and it comes out, and it's like, you're like, oh, it's spaghetti, right? It's like spaghetti. No, it's a literal solid crystalline structure. Instead of it's polymerized, though. Oh, it's a polymer. Don't get me wrong. But it's a crystalline polymer structure. And it's like, it's one of the most dangerous fucking things. Like, I'm basically playing around with what? Explosive carcinogenic compounds. And I'm like, yeah, this'll... What? I don't... What is this, a jet rocket engine? Oh yeah, no, it's effectively what it is. It's pumped in, and then it goes and gets really hot, and then it gets compressed, and then go... It's like, what the fuck is this? You know, but like, when I learned about it, I was like, that's still really cool, and it's amazing that they could do it. I'd never fucking do it, because it sounds insanely dangerous. So, like, no, right? But it was like, okay, sure, I suppose that's how you do it then. You know, like, it's fucking ridiculous after a while. You know, that kind of, like, you like, oh, I have to go get that? I don't wanna do anything like that. I'll just get some plasma and program. Way easier. Way simpler versus like, yeah, I'm gonna go do that. But no, that's effectively what it is. But they have a bath, a solutional bath that's highly, at the start, alkaline. By the end of it, it has to be extraordinarily acidic. And so, as it gets forced, it's not doing spaghetti, because like, you think a substrate has got like a little bunch of filter, like little tiny holes, right? It's like, no. The substrate's nothing like that. It breaks down during the explosive reaction and the pressure that it's under. And so it turns into like a consistent, like little mushy, like fucking percolating soup thing that it goes through. And then it comes out, and then it precipitates in a way, I guess. Precipitates, right? Like, meanwhile, that's okay, that's precipitate. Okay. Yeah, I suppose in its environment it would be. It's really highly pressurized. In its special relative area, yeah. You know what I mean? Right? Like, so it's fine, you know? Especially when it's hotter on the outside than and it's colder, and it was just different pressures, really, more than anything. But, like, I suppose, yeah, it is a precipitate, because it's condensing, right? It's sending a given electron transfer to and like, that one's effectively a bunch of, like, Fucking looking at the periodic, silicon, carbon, and magnesium. No. Titanium. Yeah, titanium is what that was, if I remember correctly. Titanium. Yeah, titanium and silicon carbon fucking structure, effectively. It's a bunch of little dust particles. It's something they just fired into with, fucking, what was it? It was an alkaline base. That was a long ago paper. I read briefly, like I briefly scanned through it. It's like, when will I ever need to make carcinogenic explosive reactants to form a polymerized crystalline structure that's harder than diamond or as hard? I'm gonna fucking figure that one out. Whatever. I didn't, you know what I mean? But I said, it was a readily, like, I think they literally stated it was like Drano something. Like Drano cleaner. I was like, that's not what that is, most likely, but it's like that. So, like, I'm guessing they didn't want to have it such that people actually knew how to make it, that kind of thing. So, regardless, that's effectively what it is. And so, like, no, it comes in, it has to go through something. It's like, yeah, oh yeah, yeah. They didn't really describe it too accurately, but if you look at the picture, it's like, well, obviously there's a dump zone over there. It goes, and it's a big old dump zone. What the fuck is that? You know what I mean? Anyways, it's like, all right, so it creates a continuous straight line. They're all one singular, like the atom thick, effectively. That's why they created this. It's like they created a bunch of these one atom thick, and it's only the gaseous particles that formed a literal hard polycrystalline polymerized structure. Yeah, no, and it was like, oh, that's fucking dope. And I'm like, I would have a hard fucking time ever finding that goddamn paper. Good luck. You know what I mean? Like, that was an off chance, just appeared on my feed because I was bored, and I was like, I guess I'll learn about that. I don't know. You know? Yeah, seriously, it's like, when am I ever going to need this? So I just never really tried to pay attention to it. So good luck on that. But then I realized it was like, oh, it's a single atom-wide polymerized repeating structure that constantly just makes a really hard filament. That's effectively really sharp fucking little needle things that likes to like make itself repeated over and over in a big little and you can just shear them off. Which is why they made them. So like you could just shear them off. And then they made them stick into these little fucking graphite blocks. So, and this is all to like a multiple layered, multi wavelength, perfect sensor kind of thing. Before they had the idea of metamaterials, like it was ubiquitous, everything is metamaterial, right? Or nano, all that. Like, this is what that was. It was just like, we just made this. Just gonna make it. You know what I mean? And now it's like, it's clearly a metamaterial, it's clearly a nanomaterial, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, that's clearly what it was, but before they had that, like, ubiquitous as fuck, it was like, just labeled under that. I was like, okay, I guess that's what it is now. But it's like graphite. It's effectively what it was, but then they make that, and then they do it again. And it would always, like, if you cleave them at the right places within the long, elongated structure, then it's like, dun, 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 and then you could stick them on, and another graphite, another graphite, another graphite, another graphite, and then you could stick them in. So, but it turned into, also, shocker, that they also had this fucking really cool, what is it, titanium, so it's a, first and foremost, it's a phosphorus, zinc, titanium diagonal, right? And like offshoot, right? And then there's a See here, no, that's phosphorus, not potassium. Phosphorus, zinc. I'm pointing at phosphorus on my fucking screen. I'm like, wait, did I say potassium? It's phosphorus. It's fucking phosphorus. First and foremost, it's phosphorus, zinc, titanium. All right. Then they had another one that was potassium, and then that one was an easy one with a. See here, it was freaking. I have to look at the stupid things. It's like, which one did blah brain go burn? Oh, that's what it was. Cobalt and fucking shit. Silicon, yeah. Cobalt, silicon, potassium. Which is like, they described a process to me that I had no fucking business ever looking at, because it was like, I don't even know right now very much chemistry. And so I was like, whatever the fuck that meant at the time, right? But it's essentially like a double bond cleave that's being mediated by a plasmification into a highly alkaline solution that breaks into an acidic one. Is literally what that is. It's like, I shoved through this, and then it goes with a bunch of bullshit to me. You know what I mean? Like, electrolysis. Yeah, electroplating. I'm like, whatever that is. That's a thing, I guess, going on, and they have it's alkaline. Okay. It works, though. Clearly, you know, it's another fucking little basic bitch kind of style of chemistry, right? Right? It's really it's just a little bit of electricity and an alkaline solution, and then they're like, I'll fire with this mixture of fucking shit that has it in there into like electroplating onto a plasma, effectively. It's like, I'm gonna fire in a plasma that will electrify, like electroplate, into this fucking like precipitate, and then it would come out as these little, and they're always this, but they're ready to always join this fucking elongated polymerized one, right? So it's like, oh, they just offshoots, yeah, but like you can't do it, right, without the other one that they made, the titanium, zirconia, or zinc, and phosphorus. But it's like, if you use zirconium, it'll work better, right? Like they mentioned that in the fucking paper. It's like, we tried at first with titanium, and then it was like zirconium. Zirconium made the better results, over 500% better. I was like, well, okay. You guys know what you're doing. 500% sounds like a pretty fucking large amount. You know what I mean? What do I know? Right? I'm just the guy reading a paper. So sounds cool as fuck. Like, I love how it was phrased, because it's like, those people would get me. Who made this would get me. You know what I mean? Because like, I could read it really well and know exactly what it meant, even though I had no fucking knowledge about it, and it was clear they were amped as fuck. They're so passionate about it, and I was like, that's science right there. You know what I mean? That's the real shit. You want that kind of shit right there. You know what I mean? And so, anyways, they did that. Super fun shit. And then it was like, oh, now this vertical within these graphite blocks would then have these diagonal offshoots that would basically look like a Christmas tree. And then they could build another graphite block onto it, and another, and then they'd use like photolithography and the same techniques they used to get rid of like things they didn't want, the acid wash or whatever it is, right? And so they'd use that, they kind of move things, and then whatever the fucking chemical they were using essentially broke it out, and then it would form with inside of these little things, and then make a diamond-like, not actual diamond, but diamond-like carbon structure around these fuckers. And then it would be, all of the sudden, guess what they've got? A big old camera sensor that has all of the fucking different wavelengths. Like, it'd be a little bit thicker, they had to use for radio wave or whatever, like they had to layer it. But apparently, like, from gamma waves all the way down to radio waves, they were able to pick up all of the sensors of, wavelengths, not sensors, pick up all the wavelengths, right? And it's like, a little flub there. Who gives a fuck? Really, you should understand that that's insane, right? Like, that's crazy. That's amazing. Oh my gosh. It's like, yeah, and it was cheap, is what they said, comparatively to the, like, thousands or more dollars that the other ones were. And I was like, wow, what is this? Like, $20. What? Like, seriously, it was like $20 for this. And I was like, well, that's a remarkable difference. Oh, right, yeah, no, because, like, you have to make an explosive carcinogenic polycrystalline structure to make that other, like, zirconium, zinc, fucking phosphorus thing. Like, that was a whole other making plasma turn into with electroplating that fucker, right? And then it was like with the fucking potassium, and then fucking shit, I've already forgotten it. Fuck, you know what I mean? Like, you should already know this, right? And it's like, yeah, no, I get it, people that watch me. You know, cobalt, and what else was it? It was the silicon, cobalt, potassium, right? Was a whole other, like, they effectively metal plated potassium, you know, like thermal and then like electroplate, you know, onto, in a vacuum, potassium and cobalt onto a silicon substrate. And it was like, yeah, but is it though? It was like, no, I had to get nanoparticles of silicon. It was like, I don't know if I could ever do that. I mean, if you wanted to do it, okay, sure, now you know how to, right? It's like, you're asking me to have like almost $1 million fucking dollars of shit to make this fucker. Not to mention, it's like, no. You have to have a steel reaction vessel that has to be coated in some fucking shit that they were talking about. That means that, like, it doesn't disintegrate under the high heat and high fucking carcinogenic acidity, alkaline, all this weird reaction shit that they're doing. And it has to be at that heat, so that way it will force itself to go through these little fucking nozzles that were like burning it into this fucking substrate reaction thing. I was like, the fuck? This sounds like extraordinarily extreme, like, well, cool as fuck, don't get me wrong, just extreme stuff to get these little things. And like, they self-assemble is effectively what they were citing in their paper, and it got reproduced at some other point, you know, because I saw up here, like, scientists reproduced the thing on my feed, and I was like, that's fucking dope. But it was also, holy shit, you know, you really kind of need, like, you know, normally I'll give you something, you know, in terms of, like, oh, here's some quartz or some glass, and you know, like, you run some current, you neon transformer or whatever, like, you can usually be safe enough about it, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, you get some copper wires or whatever, right? You know, right? It's not that bad. You know, go PCB way or something, and get, like, you know, like a little, you know, and then layer it together, right? That's not what that is. There's no doing that. You can't do any of that. Like, there's no, oh man, I'm just gonna, you know, get my millions of dollars and you go to school with my, like, multiple PhDs, I'm assuming, that were working on that, because I never really seemed to look at the damn, you know, actual names in those studies. I should probably do that. I've seen a lot of them have turned a lot more Chinese American or Chinese. I'm not really sure. Point is, a lot of them are like that. And then there are a few that are random, like, just regular, you know, American names, and I'm like, okay, whatever, you know, like, to each their own, really. It's not that big of a deal, you know. I never really give a fuck, but, like, you know, it's like, huh, yeah, most of the things I seem to read are mostly, like, Chinese American, You know what I mean? Like that's the majority of it is. And then these guys were mostly American, mixed with like definite like fucking Chinese American and some Indian. And it was a smorgasbord, right? I was like, that's several goddamn like classes, and like I can tell that the person who put this together, that funded this, like had to get like multiple chemistry, you know, and then physics degree individuals from like multiple, you know what I mean? Like all of that together had to happen. And it was like, oh yeah, that plays out with those names. There's no way that's not playing out with those names, you know? It was cool as fuck, but it's just, wow, that's really dope. Except, like, no, sure, it's really, it's $20 now, right? $20. You don't hear them a lot, right? You know, you don't hear that they're everywhere. Like, those are our new camera sensors in our phones. Why don't we just have that, right? You know? Like, you don't see them. You don't hear about them. Why? Because it's a process and a half as fuck, right? It's like, what the fuck, right? And so it's like, here's some plasma. here's some basic bitch plasma. You know, here's some electrons. Here's like some of them over here in this little gap area of like a vacuum. It has like this given whatever gas, right? And it's like a few of those layered in a given quartz medium, like over and over and over, will give you with the right like little sensors there, and you know, like little cables, you know, like little micro, like they do with the PCBs, right? Like little like micro, you know, cable, copper cable inlays, right? Yeah, it's like that'll give you effectively the same thing, right? Like, it's a fucking fat bit cheaper. The problem is that you have to now know about the constructive interference types. You definitely need to know the structures. You need to know how to pin set it, because it has to be pin set. So every one of those little like, you know, PCB inlay, you know, copper cable, all that, you have to have a field effect pin set. You have to have a electromagnetic, because like the field effect of you know, collapsing electromagnetic fields or electrostatic fields into the given plasma, right? That also needs you to have that collapse, not just from like that light that's emitted, that produces a given type of increase of electrical signal that you have to have run through, right? And then you have to have it detected by the sensor. So that way you know what type and where and how much. And it wasn't just constructive versus it was a field collapse type. And so it's like a particular type of field collapse will give you this. And I call them field collapse because that's exactly what it is. It's like, no, I can exist as a field in that given area at that time when this wavelength isn't present or very significant, right? Which is great. But what that means is that if you want to have that accuracy for all of those, all you have to do is pulse it, right? All you have to do is pulse a given type of field, like electromagnetic, and then it collapses inwards. Or if you create an electrostatic, which electrostatic is an entirely different thing. You use the conductive, like a Z-pinch, you know, flow in a plasma that allows for the electromagnetic, and then a static pass-through, capacitive. That's a field effect, right? And so when you use an electrostatic capacitive type, it then can change based upon the pulse frequency of the plasma inside of the quartz with a given type of chemical or element that you're using. So that allows for you to then create an electrical signal jump in a constructive interference with inside the quartz or glass that then gets elicited. And so then you can sense that, which is great. You just have to have the sensors in between each of those little channels, which is fine. That's not going to be a big deal, because if you don't know, light can pass through like with your hands, your fingers, right? Light can pass through and then go around, and that creates a polarization or a lensing, depending on how far away it is and where it is, right? Because if you don't know, those little columns then create a bending structure. We know about that with light, with laser light. So as it goes and slightly alters, it then becomes a constructive. And so when you properly design it with multiple layers of these little columns, it acts very much like these eyes that they have on insects, and in the structures on butterfly wings and various other insect types. And so it becomes something that becomes a compound, and then like ours type of light that comes in, our cones and rods, where it connects and then vibrates at the right frequency. And all of the rest of that then creates the full spectrum analysis, which is great. It just means that you also have to go through all, and I mean all, like literally it sucks ass, actually, to kind of make them. They're cheap as fuck, right? But it sucks ass because it's like, well, it's cheap as fuck and it's a great do-it-yourself project, like literally for most people, right? Like it's been done to varying degrees of types of wavelengths and sensitivities and so on, right? So what that means is it's like, it's a great do-it-yourself project, but then it's like a bunch of programming, a bunch of testing. Like you need to have specific wavelengths. You have to compile all of that, put it into the program, list of like all the different like sectional areas that you have, because you'll create, like, let's say this one little pin. Well, that one little pin has to be connected to this given type. Let's say that's the pixel area you want, actually, instead of like each one of them is now a pixel, right? If you want each one of them as a pixel, then you have to do each one of them as a censored in real time type thing, like an analog. So like analog has to come in, and then light also has to come in, and then also have an analog from fiber optic to electrical signal, right? So like a lot of them are really annoying when you have to make multiples, right? And then you have to make like a little sensor like that. But like it's totally doable, and in fact many people already have. Like, if you don't know about that, that's a hobby, like an enthusiast hobby kind of thing. So it's essentially multiples of those, but then making them smaller, which is basically the equivalent of what we used to do with transistors. So it's that, it's great, right? It's cheap as fuck. We're talking less than a few cents to really make them if you want to make them in mass. And I don't need to do explosive chemical reactions or anything like that, which is nice. So that's great. Now, the reason why I don't do it is because, of course, I don't have quartz, I don't have the money, I don't have any of that, and I certainly don't have the programming that a lot of them already have actually out as an open source, which is great, but there's going to need to be a lot more testing if you want to know polarization, angle, you want to have the sound effects, you know what I mean, just from light, right? So like that one turns into like this given interference profile of this given change of wavelength frequency, kind of like what LIGO does. And so as it changes, as it's vibrating through a given material that you happen to know, then it means like then it changes wavelengths of reflectivity profiles and slight subtle shifts, which you can sense if you get enough of that in a given area and you look at it for long enough. This is effectively all they're doing for those given camera types with like Microsoft and someone else that's already doing it. Joe Scott already explained about that actually being a thing, which is great, right? Now, the reason why I was talking about it is because it was like, well, Explosions in Fire was doing a video about how they have these really, really expensive sensors for IR. And I was like, oh yeah, you're not even kidding, man. Like I looked into that, I was like, because one little, scientific paper then was like, how fucking is there's $1 million sensor? What the fuck? For what reason? And it's going up to like fucking 12 million frames a second. I was like, I don't really need that, but they do, and I can totally understand why when it comes down to it, because it's like, oh, wait a second, yeah, no, fast chemical reactions that elicit a given IR signature in a given area are insanely important. Like we could use that for so much, right? And so like then they started, and I can now understand why they have these sensors, which while would take like a lot to be able to produce, would technically be very cheap to produce, right? And why they focus so heavily on doing it, because it's like, well, yeah, no, it's great to suddenly have this theory, like maybe it does this electromagnetic or this, but electrical signals during any movement and drop therein inside of an electron orbit during the chemical reactions that are going on are insanely important in terms of knowing and really having credible concrete evidence to suggest very significantly that that's exactly what's going on. And so if you have a given steady state of light of that type, and then it changes, kind of like what we look for at stars, right, as a mass spectrometer, right, then we manage to alter what it is that we see, and it's during in a real-time scenario those reactions occurring, which some of them can be like, and then suddenly, right? Or some of them are immediately. You get no fucking chance, right? And it's like, my God, man, do I want to have it such that I have like that 12 million damn frames a second, because I'm gonna need it. You know what I mean? Because you're gonna need it. But cool your jets, that's over $1 million damn dollars, and only really for very specific wavelengths. That one was, I think, like lower microwave to a sort of in that pseudo, like ultraviolet, right? Like it's like very blue into the near ultraviolet. You know what I mean? And so. And they didn't have the programming that we have now about knowing how like different wavelengths and polarization and superposition and effects through given materials alter it to the degree we really super do now have, right? And so it's like, that's great, except the program didn't update, right? You know what I mean? Like a lot of stuff, it's like really good, but what we currently have in terms of where our programming is for these given sensors isn't super great. And that's a hard one, because it's like, oh great, ChatGPT, all this, super, like there's a lot of money. So you can get so much stuff done, right? And it's like, yeah, no, okay, great, that's super great, But I've been waiting for like 5 years. Like seriously, 5 years over here as a scientist guy, just trying to fucking learn about my chemical stuff. Or we've really increased our given, sensor equipment, right? But we have no fucking clue on a lot of it, what it really means. And same thing when it comes down to like the storage of that data. Like they have a shit ton of storage, and it's like actually waning because they can't afford to keep storing it. And so there's been a push behind a lot of closed doors to effectively talk to some of the newer undergraduates and so on, and go like, hey, well, can you maybe, store this? What is it? And it's a series of wavelength profiles for this given, reaction, and with this, all this other stuff, and they just don't have the money for it, and it's sad actually, because it's like a lot of that could be genuinely brute force now. If we had that fucking data, if we knew what it was that it was sensing, you know what I mean? Like if we had the ability to know, it would mean a lot. Like seriously, like it would mean a lot. And like there's a big push now to get a lot of engineers, scientists, and more you know, and the whole STEAM field, you know, which that's the whole thing. It's like STEM is different than STEAM. Okay, like artists, you know, like artistic value is very meritable in science and technology. I know it doesn't sound like it, and you wouldn't really maybe think that it could be, right? But like, it takes creative juices to figure out how to fucking make an, you know, situation where your experiment is repeatable, understood to mean these things, and you puzzle piece together such that you can do that and also know how to do it. You know what I mean? Like, that's a big part of it. You know, if you look at like mechanical engineers, I love to talk to them about the fact that they're very often, in my mind, seen as a programmer. That's all they are. They're a programmer. You know what I mean? If you look at it, it's like this to that to that to that to this to that to this to this to that, and then it's like, right, but then this starts, and then that, and then these issues over here. Right, yes. Right. Right. I need to fix. Right. But what if it, from this initial this, then to this over here, actually, you know, instead of that you currently have, right? Like, what if we did that, right? It's like, no, but because then this and these things, and actually now these other issues. Yeah, that's true. Actually, you know, that's you know, right? It's like, that's programming in a nutshell. That's not even a joke. That's literally what a programming dev start from scratch kind of situation is. It's like, I have this kind of puzzle piece of knowledge that I've gained over the years, and it's like, now I have to like, well, because I don't want to fucking make that. Like, literally that, like, so many of those things happen so quickly. It's like, no, they already did the math. I don't fucking want to do another math. They already, no, it's already there. I'll just fucking figure a workaround. I'll just, no. No. It didn't work, did it? They'll figure out that. I'll wait. Meanwhile, it's been like 3 years, right? And that's pretty common in that kind of field, because back in the day for monitors, let's just go with the monitors, for contrast perception, a color accuracy perception for our eyes, and you know, angles, viewing angles, it was a material, transistor, volt, and like mixture of interference and destructive interference patterns, like constructive and destructive interference patterns, at various switching frequencies. And while light's great, we ended up finding a lot of interactions, and as a result, bad ones that were bad. Like, we actually made mistakes in our math. And then we ended up having to fix and correct those mistakes, because it's like, well, we set it up for this, for the monitor, right? For these given profiles of like how they'll make that type of color. And so based upon this sensor, blah, 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 that they did, right? They put it in a little box. They shine this light at it. It's supposed to be around this, you know, type of wavelength, right? And then they were like, no, this is our math for our calculating eye stuff, right? And then they were like, I'll just piece it together. It's basically what all that really is, and it's been based upon something from back in the 1800s or some shit. And it turned out like we had made mistakes. Shocker! What? The 1800s didn't have it all, you know? Right? And then we were like, what the fuck? I mean, it's gotta be the pixels. It's gotta be the train. You know, it's gotta be all this other stuff. And they fought for like half a decade, I think, to try to get that fucking shit, the math, corrected. Yeah, until eventually they paid an actual mathematician to go in and look at it They actually had to pay, like a real physics mathematician knows the things. They paid that motherfucker to then go over all of this collected data, and then they had to then talk to the dudes for a while about different programming, what it could mean, and all this other stuff as to how the data is interpreted. Because it's like I this, and then like, you know, averaged out for this person, you know, all that. And then they made an update, and that's why we have these new HDRs. We have these new like P65 something, and all this other stuff instead of like sRGB or just red, green, blue kind of versions, right? And it's like they're great, kind of, except that they have these failings, and effectively that means it's like, oh, we got these updates because we were programming incorrectly, and that's a given, right? Like, it's not like, oh, I elicited this very wavelength of photon, right, which are photon guns, you know, tube TVs, right? It's like, no, this is what this is. That's all you're getting, right? You know, like, yeah. And you can mix it a little bit, and it's real simple analog, pretty fast. You can scan down the line, right? But it's like, no, this is this pixel, right? And so it turned into, oh, we had not gotten that math right. That's a thing. And it came about that when the dress is black and gold or something, or it's blue and white, or whatever it was, right? And it was a huge meme and viral and all this other crap. And I was like, what is this? Who gives a fuck? I'm like, of course you already know that, like, depending on your monitor, you get different results. And your eyes, you get different results. Like, you know that, right? Like, that's just an obvious understood. Like, everybody's, oh man, this TV or this monitor suddenly so much better, or suddenly it's, you know, this type of extra whatever it is, or a little bit more saturated, or, you know, something like that, right? Like, everybody knows that. They didn't know that. They didn't know that, and they didn't know why. Turned out, like, a lot of people didn't know why. Yeah, like, legitimately, they didn't know why. That meme actually gave them a push and money. Like, people wanted to know something. And it made it so that way they got people to actually look, change the math, and change the resultive programming for all these different color profiles and contrast profiles. And effectively, same thing with the cameras. They made it such that cameras were now going to be more accurate for color and contrast and perceptions for us from our monitors. So it was like, oh, people are stupid. People think we have, like, everything already figured out. Which means we're overconfident douche fucks, essentially. Whereas, like, the people that are actually in the field, or people like me that are just watching and that really like this stuff, it's like, we're so screwed. Those overconfident douche fucks are like, we've got it all done. And it's like, you have no clue. We have nowhere near all of it done. There's a lot of glaring holes in many places in our electronics and our sciences and more. Although, like, what we do know, like, for sure, this is sticking, you know what I mean? But then other stuff, it's like, you look at Hubble constants. Like, oh my gosh, Hubble constants is insane. I love to talk about it because it's like, there's no way you know what that frequency really was, and whether or not, especially now that you have a LIGO, and you're like, no, it changed. When? We don't know. We have no clue. It could be more massive here because, oh, we also have dark energy and dark matter? So how much is that actually stretched or compressed in terms of space-time? Not blue shifted or red shifted. No. We're talking like actual distances of space and time. And that's not even getting into like how red shifts can absolutely still happen in a compressed environment of space-time. And so it's like, so you why do you feel like that's good? Meanwhile, It's like we have to tell the regular everyday every average person kind of thing that doesn't know much about that no, we've got it regular, good to go, done, it's standardized, we've got it, you know what I mean? Yeah, it's good to go. We all of it. And it's like, nah, I'm not doing it. I'm not gonna be with you. I know for a fact we don't. But that guy needs to sell you, and like we need to do the work. So like this is the dichotomy. This is like the workplace dynamic. You know what I mean? Like I need to do the work and keep looking at it. You sell them, keep getting us money to keep doing that, because like otherwise we're fucked. Like they really think that it's like no. Since you don't know all the things, all of a sudden I shouldn't pay you to learn about what the hell it is we don't know. Like what the fuck? Like you have to know everything to then like know everything? No sense at all is made there, by the way, like in any way. And that's a regular person. Those are your politicians. Those are your corporations. You're like, oh, I can't make money off this thing. It's like, okay, really? It has to be okay. Okay. I see what you're doing over there. You're making it us is the bad people. Yeah. No, I didn't say anything about you being bad. That's your interpretation of that. I just think it's really kind of weird after a while that that's something that you're doing. Like you don't equate it at all to your regular everyday life. Like why is it that when somebody knows something, all of a sudden you get petty and weird about it? Such that, like, no, I will not help you learn about the stuff that you said that you knew a lot of this stuff about. And I'm like, no wonder why they like the Bible. It says, no matter what, it's this. Yeah, but then you cherry pick whatever the fuck you want out of it. It's like, well, yeah, but like, no, at least I'm willing to change my shit when I know shit's not working, or it's definitely this now at the very least, because of all of this that we did that definitely says that that's what that is. And other people all did it as well and said, yep. I'm just saying, that's some good shit, right? Meanwhile, it works for me like that. What about this person, that person, those groups, those all that? They're evil and wrong and should die. I don't know if I could do that with fundamental particles, brah. I don't think I can get that done. I don't know if I can get that done with any fundamental forces either. You're gonna be shit out of luck on that. Is there a way we can maybe just change that, where we were wrong, we made a mistake, and now we've updated, and now it's like this? You know what I mean? Like, why don't we do that instead? You know what I mean? Like, what the fuck is this? Makes no sense, right? But they like that because it's kind of like, well, no, I don't have to fucking ever admit I ever made a mistake or like anything's wrong or it's like, I like doing that. That means I learned something. That means I made something even better. You know what I mean? Like, I love coffee, right? So it's like, all right, so I'm going to make an attempt at making good coffee. It's terrible, right? It was terrible. It was my first, oh my God. Right, and then I was like, all right, other people probably thought about this. I'm thinking about it like this. Maybe I'm not thinking about it right. Let me go, you know what I mean? And it's like, all right, so I'll try this. They said that this would, it is better. I'm going to do some more things. They said that maybe this, and then maybe that, and then, okay, I'm going to try the same thing. All right, I'm going to do that. Right, I'm going to do this and this, and I'm seeing some good thing, and it's saying, and then it's like, now, it's like 500 tries later, or some other amount, like whatever it is, like, let's say it was 50 tries later, right? You know what I mean? And it's like, man, I've been grinding, but I really want to get consistent with this one thing. You think, well, man, why are you being so anal about this? So what does it matter? It's just going to be a bitter fucking, you don't even like it, whatever, but you can do it because it makes you feel a little pep in your step, right? And it's like, Here's the one I did, a little earlier. It was okay. Meanwhile, I'm doing my thing while they have that. This is fucking amazing! This is the greatest coffee I've ever had in my life! What the fuck? Meanwhile, it was okay, honestly, it wasn't that great. I've got to tell you, like, I taste this and that and that, and I can totally get rid of that. And it's like, I finish and like, oh yeah, no, this one's better. This one's way better. You're gonna want this one. Here, try that. This is phenomenal! Why is it that we don't make coffee like this all the time? You see me working here for about 15 minutes to get that done. Just to set up to the point where I have like this one moment of time of like 5 minutes max or whatever it is to get that one fucking time. One drink. That's it. You get the one. Just the one. It's worth it. You know what I mean? It's worth it. Right? Like, absolutely worth it. Totally worth it. Absolutely worth it. But you gotta learn a lot. Like, you go through all this other stuff that other people have done. They all are also trying their own shit. There's a lot of creative people, but eventually, like, you start hitting on the fact that a lot of people have done a lot of things, and then you realize we don't write down and have a repository of information that is easily found, used, referenced, and more. And anyone that really wants to get into it then isn't like, you're going to be taught, that kind of thing. So a lot of it turns into like, oh, is it really that big of a deal? Is this the one thing, or do I need to do that? All that. So it's like, oh well, you're trying to learn a bunch of stuff that people maybe have already done. Or you are rediscovering something that has been lost only because a lot of people didn't save it and teach it. Or if it really is new, which is great, then it's like, well, you're effectively in creative mode. Nobody really knows. You have to just try and brute force with deductive reasoning, logic, and more. And so that turns a lot more into physics, chemical engineering, and all this other stuff for coffee, right? And good luck wherever that might lead you to, because, like, for what it's worth, you might not end up with something that at first, and you'll feel discouraged, that actually is better, right? Like, that's one of the worst parts about discoveries. Like a prototype. Like, no, this could be a really good thing, and then it's like, oh, yes, no, but it's not performing as well as this. Why not? Shouldn't it be so much better? And it's like, yeah, right. There's refinement processes, not even getting into the fact that you have to really end up learning how to tailor it, which means specifically setting it up for that given type of thing to do that. Which then turns it into a lot of trial and error and all the different, like, individual little tiny things that could be influencing it. Like, you put this amount in, and then it's like, you'll change this. So you have a constant, whatever it is, and then you'll do for all these changes of these given variables and see what the result of it is. And then you'll do it again on all of these other things, and then you'll have to get into the shape, structure of whatever it might be. That could be grind, that could be the brew, method, that could be the literal, like, is it this type of French press? Is it, made out of this material? Whatever it is, right? And so that can be the same for, like, engines, electrostatic, electric motors, rocket engines, jet engines, transmission, power line transmission, sine waves, types of different phasings, silicon transistors. It just goes on and on and on and on and on. And then all of a sudden you'll start realizing it's like, oh, yeah, no, you have a lot more work to do. Like, all of those people that are in any of those given fields, it's like, yeah, no, for sure. But you're not going to know exactly until you have to brute force a lot of that. And that's the research development cost. Right? Like, I love talking about this. But imagine me, it's like, no, I'm going to go to a bunch of rich people, right? And it's like, oh, so it's only going to be like this, amount of money for whatever it is, right? And this patent, blah, blah, blah. Suddenly make a lot of money, right? right? It's like, no, okay, yeah, no, sure, yeah, no, well, sure, yes, you will be able to manufacture it at a very low cost and sell it at that cost, and there'll be a good supply and demand. But it's not going to cost that to make that initially at all. And in fact, to actually know how to make it such that it is like that, that costs a certain amount of money to do, right? So it's like, no, I should just, it's only, what, $50? It's only going to be $50, whatever it is, right? And it's like, yeah, I mean, well, it's, it's going to get there, At first, it's really probably going to be more like the 10, 20, maybe even $100,000 to do whatever that is. And that's like, you have to eat food, you have to pay the electricity bill, you have to get the materials, you have to fucking get the, person paid, right, doing that. Like, all of that costs money. And that's why a lot of crowdsourcing, open source stuff is so big now. Because it's like, well, no, like, all of us are going to work together, And it's like, that's why it took 10 years to get anywhere near certain things, right, that are in that field. In terms of either programming, sensors, a multitude of things, truthfully. And so it's like, no, well, I would love to, but like, this is a passion project that I'll get to every so often, maybe every 2 weeks or whatever. And it's like, no, but this is my whole job in life. And it's like, yeah, but I don't have that money or time to, I'm not going to be able to do that. Right? And so, when you talk to someone that's an individual that usually has money and wants to invest or whatever, they often might not understand that, right? And they might expect something so much faster than it is reasonable to assume and expect that to be the case, right? And that's and then another reason why I was talking about I was talking about, but we in general, in terms of the open source or whatever, in science and technology, right? We'll talk about stuff like that way, where it's like, no, it really will be able to be costing that much, to sell, right? And it can be ubiquitous. It can be really amazing, right? But it's like with the sensors, it's like, okay, well, it's pretty cheap. Like, it's less than $100 easily. Like, honestly, a few cents, really, if you wanted to, like, manufacture it in mass, and you knew what you were doing, and you'd already had all the programming and all that stuff, which, well, sure, yeah, no, it's really just a brute force method after a while. You know what I mean? It's like, here's a box, here's this radio wave, here's this type of microwave, here's this, that kind of thing, and you feed it over time. And it's like, no, I need an anechoic chamber. It's like, yeah, I love it. You know what I mean? Like, right? Yeah. It's like, oh, let me go fork out my 100 million. Just fucking make an anechoic chamber for fucking light. You know what I mean? Like, woohoo, yeah, no, it's gonna. Meanwhile, brute force, open source turns into, I'll try and carve out, because the sun produces various wavelengths and they're always around us, right? Carve out the vast majority. I'm going to destructively interfere as much light and then put it in like roughly good enough anechoic, do a whole bunch of shit. And then, like, I'll get a whole bunch of other people like, hey guys, you can build this, right? And then everywhere all around, and then here's like a fucking few months or a year worth of data, right? And then it's like, now I've got this, and then it's like, all right, everybody, we're gonna program, right? And it's like, yeah, I don't know how to program. I can do that though. Okay, yeah. It would be nice if somebody would help me on this. Anything at all. But that's why people pay people money for that. And that's why the certificates and everything are a thing. Like, I, generally speaking, have my own issues, for sure, about PhDs, masters, and so on. And when a lot of information is something that you can be taught or learn without needing to go through school, right? which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. No, what turns into something wrong is like the person not doing the work, right? And you'll see it on any side, really. It's really not necessarily something you, after putting in that effort and have a reputation now, right? Getting published and doing these various things, okay, that you want to have that reputation removed or lessened in some aspects. And so it creates an incentive of a consequence to not do the work, right? And that's really what that is. Like, there's people that have character, right? And the rest of it that goes along with that when it comes down to doing that type of work and having the passion and really enjoying things and whatnot, and really couldn't handle it for themselves if they were to ever ultimately not do it or not put in the effort, right? And then there are others that need a consequence. They need a consequence, right? And that's a bit rough because it's like, well, it'll work, the carrot stick model. Like, man, I'll get funding, I'll get money, I'll get fame, I'll get all this stuff. Cool, whatever. I mean, do you need it? Like, for real? Yeah, because especially like all the work, and I need that to be able to pay off all the shit that I kind of said that I would pay off. So like I kind of need to, right? It's like I really now need to do this. And it's like, right. So then I definitely can't shirk my responsibility until like you paid it off, or what's going on there? You know what I mean? Like is it like you're only going to get up to that point and then you don't do it anymore? Is that what that is? Because that's where my brain and my mind really goes towards. Because that's what I've seen consistently throughout like most of history. Be it a government that says they'll do something and doesn't, corporations that say they'll do something and they don't, creators, the artists, various engineers and all that whatever, right, said that and they tried but then they didn't, right, which is it's a bit rough, right? And so it's like most of history is littered with individuals that are like that, right? And that's not really me. They ruined a large amount of progress, and truthfully, they got away with it, and they were going to be able to still have food, shelter, water, all that, and make, people make mistakes, right? But it's intentional. After that amount of time, that's intentional. It becomes a problem, especially when it's like, now I understand about the social survivorship bias, zeitgeist problems. A lot of our studies not being replicatable or having variable control. It's like there's noise in the data. No, that's not noise. I don't know why they call it noise. That's a variable. You know what I mean? That's a variable, and like you can ultimately piece together how much a variable influences something over enough given data sets and values and experiments over time to know how much that might influence other variables. So it's like outside influence is not noise. That's a variable. Like, why aren't you accounting for variable control? Like, what is this? It causes me a problem when I look at that when it comes down to multitudes of different studies. Like, they effectively don't account for most variables. They have a specific look-in study that they want at the end of it, right? And that's what's going to get them funding. That's going to make it seem like they're credible and legitimate. But in fact, like, that data can't really be considered good. You know what I mean? It's the same thing when it comes down to the Hubble constant now, right? And a lot of other various astrophysics and more that have an issue in them. And so when they're like, you don't know it, and you're going after the science, that's a first mark of someone that is clearly wrong and simply just trying to get a bunch of people to believe in malarkey bullshit. And it's like, no, stupid cunt. That was good then. You can do better now, dumbass. You know what I mean? You can account for those variables now. You should do that. Like you couldn't before. Why don't you do it now? Well, you shut the fuck up. Okay. So, I'm the guy that's trying to destroy your science. No. No, you as a scientist, as an engineer, any of that in those fields, should already know this. Why do I have to bring it up? You know what I mean? You know, because it's like not that hard to figure out that that's going on. It's really not. And it's a problem, you know, that a lot of people don't even notice. Especially like the ones that need to defend again. Like, you're the one that's doing this. You're a time and you don't do anything and you don't put in those and blah, blah, blah. And it's like jealousy and pointing out basic hypocrisy that they have for their given defense mechanism because, of course, they feel that for themselves and so on. That's going on. It's pretty easy. That's intentions, too, which are pretty easy to figure out, too, when it comes down to consistent, reactive, actionary decision-making as well. You know what I mean? And then you can always ask questions and then figure that out. And so after enough time, you end up realizing variable influence. And it gets worse, right? It's like, no, you don't, and all that. You know, you can already see it, right? Like being in the comments or whatever. Various people that need to defend themselves this way. And they're generally jokes within a large amount of that community. Like people that are like myself know that that's a thing, and we're trying to fucking like just sort of figure it out and fix it. But people like that are losers to their own idea of it's a game. Like they always say it's a game. They always have like it's a win-lose. I'm this status. I'm this power. You know, like an Andrew Tate, right? Or Trump, or many other people, and they're disgusting garbage motherfuckers that basically ruin the very idea of things being able to progress and get better, and people making mistakes, which people make mistakes. You know what I mean? We all do. So it's a bit weird that they're something that we even have to fight or has some degree of say in anything practically, right? Like they're just really lame douchebugs. You know what I mean? Like they really are, though. I love seeing that various people that peer review or review in these various science papers that I've been reading, or individuals that are a bit bigger and that got reviewed and then were found to have made mistakes or intentionally and purposefully lied and misled people. You know what I mean? And so it's great that they called them out and then they removed what that was and what wasn't good and what wasn't working. But then here's the issue of, they are in a literal system that is just like any of the other, corporations in our economy. They have to sell a bunch of people on something working to continue getting funding, and it might just do that, but it might not for so long until they can get the technology, the sensor, whatever it is, that that they're going to lie about achieved results until they can then redo those results with the better thing, or however it is that they're trying to ultimately get some experiment performed or whatever it is. And it leads to bad science. It leads to a lot of bad science. Like, a lot of people lead themselves to bad science because of needs for funding. That's what that is. So, and I was only really kind of talking about it because it's like, you probably don't think I'm saying something that is true about the sensors and how they were made, and like the elements that they were using, and you most likely don't even know about the plasma thing I'm talking about. So, and then it's like a lot of it, especially when it comes down to various anthropological, sociological, lots of stuff like that. And like, especially history. You know how hard it is to get a bunch of people to believe something after they were raised to be an adult, believing something that was fully incorrect. Like, that's religion, that's government, that's fucking so many different fucking things, truthfully. There's a lot of history written by revisionists that won, quote unquote, or had enough money to force it to be stated like that. So it's one of those problems of a lot of us, like, we don't really maybe know until we get deep into the woods of something just how much might not be accurate. And that can leave a lot of people. It left me, I know, especially when I was younger, going through that, just disillusioned, very disillusioned. Like, I was told about Paul Revere, and that was never even a thing. Like, not really, realistically, like how it is that we ultimately even decided to fight Britain, Great Britain, is not great. Like, America is kind of very much almost completely lying with how that ultimately went down. Not really completely, but it's a lot. That's what we're taught in schools is effectively a bunch of propaganda garbage. And, like, Adam Conover Ruins Everything is a wonderful, wonderful. I know it's just a TV show or whatever, but it's a wonderful source for just various things that we genuinely were led to believe. And we still do. Like, a lot of people in America still do believe a bunch of bullshit. And it's fucking phenomenal because people will try and say the same thing about me. You know what I mean? Not so much online, but various things in my everyday life that have gone down over time. When push comes to shove, it's like, I literally had like 10 minutes of Googling done and then proved you wrong. It took nothing to do that. I don't even know why you believe what it is that you're believing. And why you're so adamant about clearly being incorrect about something, right? And it's hilarious because people will often do it with, anything. I can guarantee you whatever lurkers that fucking watched my various stuff on YouTube did it with me as well. All the time. Like, no, there's no way to connect a flywheel to a fucking crankshaft with a gear and have it have a different gear teeth ratio such that it like pauses at either top dead or bottom dead center. And have like the equivalent of like a variable valve duration using like, I don't know, this fucking shit called the crankshaft. Really? You can't. That's completely mud-like, obviously. And I'm still on it, but it's like the thing is, it's like that's one person, that was willing to say bullshit that they knew was wrong, or they knew more or less effectively that they were trolling, right? And they know that they can get away with others believing the troll response, especially on a small little channel like mine. And you don't see a lot of people that are there that do know what I'm talking about, that are fully understanding that it can work and it does work, and in fact it's been done before. A lot of that's kind of what I do. Like, a lot of stuff is piecing together things that have already been seen to happen consistently and have been done before. And when I see people questioning me, or saying something now more than anything, instead of the questioning thing, it's like saying something now that is effectively wrong, about either physics or psychology, anthropology, history, and I've done all of this, because I'm curious, kind of thing about this, wanting to learn, it's like, holy fuck. And it's like that. It's so many different YouTubers. It's so many. And then there's politicians, and then like a whole bunch of people will mob up, and then fight really hard to effectively rah, whatever, a lie, or a straight up just not in any way, shape, or form correct. And it's disturbing. You know what I mean? It's like the anti-vax again, like back in the day, except it's basically blatant and out in the open. It's the same thing when I see various, studies being done based upon a incomplete, inaccurate study. In astrophysics, there's a lot of quantum mechanics actually that are similar, which is pretty rough. There's a big talk apparently going on behind a lot of those doors about how much we might need to possibly alter how we have our current math and physics seen and understood as, thanks to a lot of the very things I just said, the variable control, how we set up our sensors, how we have that information, how it influences what various astrophysics phenomenon might be affecting those given things. It's a bit rough. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if you're the big top, astrophysics, you're the big top, quantum physics, right? And then it's like, hey guys, so, like, it could be maybe up to 80% or more. We have no idea really right now of our stuff might genuinely need to be redescribed in a lot of ways. You know what I mean? Not that it's all wrong, right? But like, there's a lot of stuff that's going to need to be basically updated, and it's pretty often looking like a lot of them have been very afraid of the idea of it essentially being more or less completely wrong. Like, what they've done was completely wrong. And that's a fucking shit show. You know what I mean? Like, if like an entire physics like just came out yesterday, and it's like, yeah, so all of gravity wrong. What? You know what I mean? But they do it. It's like, if there was genuine, like, you know what I mean? Like, everybody's gonna do it. It's gonna be on the board. You know, like we have to. All right, guys, like, get your jokes out of the way. But you know, fucking okay, fine. But like for what it's worth, what we were doing, it looked like it was that. Well, you know, and that's another reason why when I think about psychology, or sexuality based arguments or gender based arguments, stuff like that, or sociology, right? And it comes down to zeitgeistio cultural phenomenon. And how they influence us. It gets really rough. Because it's like, no, you want to tell them, you know, like that you've got it figured out. Right? And it's like, well, you know, we never had that figured out. Like legitimately speaking, there's never been a point in our entire human history where we've had it all figured out. You know, and the fact of the matter is genetically speaking, things have gone up and gone down, waxed and waned in terms of our genetics, predisposition for various, you know, mental phenomena, what we viewed that to be as, the sexuality too, likes, dislikes that are, you know, there, traumas, abuse, and what could be constituted or not, what's acceptable or not. It's gone on for long enough that now that we have a lot of the history, you know, more of the lack of the revisionist and now the true kind of stuff, or closer. We now know that it's like a lot of what we initially start with is a various hodgepodge of non-variable accounted and not looking past a very, very small, narrow margin of a given type of cherry-picked sort of data. And a lot of people that don't like that, stupid camera, which is my phone, which is, you know, whole thing. But it's like a lot of people that don't like the idea of things changing, like no. And we had to deal with it when it came down to like, no, the Bible is obviously all perfect, and you just don't get why. And you know, it turns into like, no, it's not. It's not. I know for a fact it's not fucking perfect. You can shut up. You know what I mean? And it gets worse the longer you are alive. You find out that a lot of that's also the case in a lot of studies that we used to genuinely, like, to put it in perspective, as early as far back, literally in the 2010s here, which isn't very far back, we were citing shit to argue against bisexuals being and other gay people not valid, right? Like there's bad things about them, right? And it's like, okay, so like you have anal sex and you're more likely, if you don't use a contraceptive, to have a given type of UTI. Okay, like, shocker. What? Same thing. Are they having it more often with the gay that are men, or what about the women? You know, you know what I mean. But it's like it got phrased genuinely. The paper got phrased as all homosexuals and bisexuals, and they eventually had to retract that and change that because, of course, that was misleading as fuck, right? Right? Like, genuinely misleading. And, you know, at the time, I didn't think of it as much of anything. I was like, well, this is stupid. You know what I mean? Like, I'm a young adult, right? I'm not in the scene. I don't know. I didn't think it was a big deal, but I didn't think it was like, oh my god, the world's ending, right? And it's like, oh, clearly they're gonna change that, and they did, right? But it's like that's an American study performed not long ago that tried to effectively make a narrative push against all homosexuals, regardless of anything. as like you should never be because it means no matter what. Like already absolutes? What the fuck? Which I didn't know at the time were, as big of a deal as they were. Like they're absolutes, so it means all or nothing, black and white. Like there's no real detail there, right? Like it's a bell curve. A lot of things are percentages. And they'd go on about it as citing in Fox News about this meaning that they're valid to hate gay people and harm them. And it's like the sample size was okay-ish, right? It's nowhere near what you would really want for that to be something that would be more than just correlatory. Okay, so like correlatory, like if it's only like 1,000, you think that's a lot, but it's like 1,000 in this one little tiny area, only for this amount of time, of only this kind of stuff. It's like, no, that's not like much of anything actually, because it's like you didn't go into like the amount of healthcare they have. You don't go into any of the amount of money and the struggles and other medicines and illicit or recreational drug uses that they're going and doing, right? And then partners as well. You didn't go into any of it. Like literally, I read it. It was like, I could be off, for what it's worth. It is in the early 2010s that I'm talking about, but like, for what it's worth, that's not that long ago. It is, because I'm 32 now. Time flies, man. But it's like, whew, when I was looking at it, I was just dropping out of high school. You know what I mean? Freshly dropped out of high school because of my mental issues. And yeah, that was a thing. So it was just like, oh yeah, no. I mean, think about it. It's like, oh yeah, wait. What was going on when I was in high school? Holy shit! People regularly went after fucking people that were gay or transsexual in my high school. Like they did. Like, you know what I mean? I thought it got better from like middle school, so like middle school was like really bad, right? And like elementary school, oh, you even were thought of, you know what I mean? You were like evil incarnated, right? And it was like, what the fuck? And every time I ever had a conversation with any of them or had as a friend for a while, I would like their company and conversations with them in general more than I would ever like any of the other, quote unquote peer group that I'm supposed to be with. Like better in all aspects. And it never dawned on me that other people didn't just already just accept them and just think that they were normal people and they were good. Who gives a fuck? Like, you know what I mean? For the longest time. I'm talking like genuinely for the longest time. I literally got to near my senior year in high school before I thought that it was actually that bad. Because I didn't know. I was like, oh, people are so racist? Like, people are still killing people because of religion? What is this? I didn't know. I was a sheltered person. I didn't really have a lot of friends, first and foremost. Like, the moment someone said something that I really didn't like, it was just like, I'm out, Like, whatever that was. And a lot of it is, like, kind of hate of, like, one thing or another, or, trying to say that, no, this would be acceptable to do to these groups of people. And I was like, no. And I was effectively just always by myself. And sure, I saw some mean, negative, nasty stares, right, towards various individuals, or phrase here or there, but I was always around it so much that I didn't know it was as bad. I'd been bullied most of my life. Same thing at home too. So I was like, yeah, whatever. That's just par for the course. What's the difference? So it eventually like picked up, but now that I'm older, and I went through like a lot of my own self-discovery, my own life, right? And I've seen a lot of people thrown out because they have various people that they like that they can't help, or they have a religion that isn't agreed upon by most people, right? Or were born with a mental deficiency, is they like to apparently call it. I'm like, they're just autistic. They're not like, you know what I mean? Like, what the fuck? A deficiency? Where's the iron, I guess, man? What the fuck? It doesn't make sense at all to me. It doesn't. It never dawned on me that that's a thing that people would care about as much as they have. It's just such an odd one. And yet people will literally destroy others' lives over something like that, right? And then I realized it's like, they'll use anything. They can. I mean anything. It complete hogwash crap that just sounds as though it's something relevant. You know what I mean? Like, oh, you're gonna get more UTIs. I'm like, well, do you even know how many fucking straight people are getting UTIs? Like, let's take that percentage for once. You know what I mean? Like, let's say, like, hey, this small. What is it, like 10%? Okay, like, so let's say you were around the 70 somehow or whatever it fucking was. It's like, let's see how many of you are getting UTIs, huh? Because you didn't get this education about ultimately how to prevent them. And then you look at that and it's like, wow, let's just take a look at the basic metrics of hospitalizations for UTI, those that can actually even have the health care, they're straight, heterosexual, standard stuff, that don't get education earlier on too, in fact none, we'll go with, that are religious, okay, or none, we'll do the basic rundown, right, of the variables of how that works out, right? And you'll find they didn't get education, they don't have it, readily available or easily, such that they can actually afford it. They are on the lower end of economics, right? They, generally speaking, believe that God or some other bullshit. You'll find that there's a huge percentage of them versus others that have UTIs consistently. They also have more consistent miscarriages because they are frequently having to take certain medications that can increase the likelihood of this. And it's a problem because then you realize it's like, education literally makes it such that their whole idea is wrong. It's what it is. It's like, no. They, across the board, those individuals, percentage-wise, you take them from that heterosexual, you break it down, there's like 10% of them that are in a particular variable, are more likely to get a UTI than all of the gay percentage that they were fucking researching for their study. They are retarded. And I use that word properly every time. Let me tell you, they are retarded, held back by their crap, by their own bullshit. And they intentionally make sure to not learn something new that might challenge their beliefs. And they'll try and do that with me Or they're like, no, reverse onto you. You don't know our Bible. You don't know our type of way of what we look at it with these very hyper-specific, very non-relevant, blah, 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 blah. Like I'm an anti-vaxxer all of a sudden. You know what I mean? Like I have to go through the anti-vaxxer version for people hating. You know what I mean? Whatever version of me that they want to go with. And I just laugh. Just most likely like you. Because it's like, if you're like me, then it's like, oh yeah, no, you're hilariously out of fucking touch. You were genuinely uninformed. It's clear as fucking day. And there's no fucking arguing with you, and I don't need to. You're not going to change your mind. It wouldn't matter what I gave you. That's the point. And I don't have to change your mind. I don't have to give a fuck about your opinion. I don't have to do any of that. In fact, really realistically, we put it out there for other people, and we put in the argument more or less for others to learn and kind of make it such that they are made to learn and be educated. You know, all of a sudden, we'll learn that consistently throughout our history when we've done this, there's fewer of those douche fucks and more people like myself that exist. And they suddenly have their power lessened and ours goes up. You know what I mean? We're just in a lower moment. You know, that's the predator-prey. Like, we'll become a predator, they'll become a prey for a while. They'll become a predator, we'll become prey for a while. Right? And it's pretty easy because it's based upon hate. You know, easily, you know, gone after types of things that are misdirected from given real issues that they can't really kind of go after. And that's really all that is. Like, that's the power that they have. That's it. Yeah, no. That's because the only way it's there is because of money or a bunch of people deciding to group up and do something. They're effectively losers, you know, like, but the reason why I talk about it is because it's like, well, sexuality is a massive spectrum that changes tremendously, generationally. Like, every generation has a massive change, it seems like, about how much is accepted, and then, like, old ways, oh my god, not that, though. And it's like, you're seeing a consistent pattern where you're trying to figure your shit out and what the best is, it seems like, right? But it's like, no, it's a very individual thing, and just like whatever you like, and that's just educate people to be fucking safe about it. It's all you really ever have to do, and you'll find that everybody's fucking good to go. You know, like, you never really have to worry. But it's like, no, my old Bible, my own, I like this, and I wanted this to be accepted. I only want this. It just gets old real fast. You know, and it's a frustrating thing because society does it also with what accepted values of work are: purpose, fulfillment, relationship types, money given for types of work. You know what I mean? Many things like this. In this competitional kind of weirdness that's going on is just an average standard. That's just what it is and the way it is, right? And it's like, not really. Like, things are just them and this. I know it's very binary, right? Polarizing, right? But it's like, that's just what it is. It's like, this is what's going on. And the people that are involved and everything around it have various feelings and opinions as a result. And will have various perspectives and blah, blah, right? And they can be influenced by many other things and even how it's presented to them. You know what I mean? And so, it's like, still, it's what it is. Like, I don't give a fuck. All that didn't change that X plus Y still made that happen, right? So, like, it doesn't really change that. It never will. You know, like the artist's argument is like the context, whatever, right? And it's like no. That's for those that are going to be affected by whatever consequence or something else they have to ponder about. Fact of the matter is, that ball hit the ground. You know what I mean? It was red. I don't give a fuck. It's a ball that hit the ground. Well, it was going through blah 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 mediums, or this error, or this, all the fucking things, right? And it was presented with the black and white, and now it's red, or other stuff like that. And it doesn't really matter. Ball hit ground. Ball hit ground. That's it. You know what I mean? There's nothing else that's there. Ball hit ground. You know? So, that's all it is. People don't often like that because in a lot of ways we are humans that seek out meanings in pattern and meanings in pattern. So meanings, comma, and pattern, meanings in patterns as well, right? Which is why we often will look at others to figure out how to predict them. People like myself that have been abused by narcissists are really good at it. We're really good at deductive reasoning. Okay, and that's sort of what that turns into. It's a classic childhood trauma thing, but it's not ubiquitous. Like that, it's a stereotype for a reason. All right, like it'll find a lot of people are really, really bad at that, that went through that, and are tremendously shit at predictive. They're more reactive, fawn, immediately just give in, right? And it's not ubiquitous across the board. Again, that's another type of stereotype, but it's more often seen, right? Where I'm going with this is it's like you are all a bunch of back and forth abusers, all right? Like boom, 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 boom kind of thing. A society that teaches you a given type of idea that was lying to you the entire time. Then by the time you're forced to continue it, you don't even realize that there's no real changing it because of how difficult it really is in the government to change something. Then you learn about how much you really, really were lied to. And others will suck up, gaslight, brown nose, and more those very people and try and perpetuate the lie as if it's truth. And then marketers will get in and get their money and cut. And a lot of other scientists will do it too. And the reason why I tend to talk about it is because it's like, well, that's something that's going on with me. In, a harassy, stalker, bullshitty kind of way. Even if you don't know, there are fucking people that are fucking constantly listening to me. I can't fucking just lie about that, right? Like, it's so fucking obvious. If only I could get someone to really look into that, but it's a bunch of bullshit, effectively. Like I can put on the VPNs and the proxies, do the onions and all the rest, you know what I mean? It doesn't change that if they want to get in, they can get in, there's no real way of stopping that. It's what it is. So, I talk about it like that because it's like, no, you would assume that I'm a person that is schizo, paranoid, or whatever version of that is. You would assume that there's nothing of validity there. And then on top of it, you end up realizing like a lot of my ideas, my perceptions, a lot of the truths of what's around you, and my, just pointing out the obvious mistakes in various fucking beliefs and, perspectives, studies, more, doesn't really get a lot of people on your side. So, and then they'll, whatever they need to think to continue their selective hatred, vigilantism, or whatever fucking version it might be. And they already become a person that has lost effectively what the truth was. That other person is just like you that you're trying to go to for some official whatever, or belief of hatred can be used. They'll go after you for your hatred. This person will go and try and help me just because you're trying to go after me. A lot of that's a thing, right? And so whatever that might be, it's just douche fuckery, effectively. A lot of people will side with a person trying to help. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter what their thoughts or beliefs are. A lot of people sided with Alan Turing. You know what I mean? Turing, right? A lot of people sided with that motherfucker. A lot of people went with Newtonian laws of physics with Newton because they were right. You know what I mean? Doesn't matter. The church didn't like the guy. All right. Same thing with Galileo. Right? Doesn't matter. A bunch of noise. That's all you are. And history continues to repeat itself of you died and they were remembered. You were worthless and lost because apparently it's all about fame, fortune, you gotta win, lose, blah, 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 which is what they always seem to do and talk about. And it's like history had them as nothing but a footnote of some douche fuckery to this really wonderful person, or various, this is good stuff, but there's some, and then, like, truthfully speaking, that's going to be interpreted many different ways over the years. In 50, 60, 100, 1,000, whatever it is. That'll go up and down as to various acceptability or likability or whatever. That's just how that works. And so, Einstein fucked blah 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 will turn into Einstein fucked blah blah blah, or Einstein kind of fucked a little blah blah. It's whatever. Who gives a fuck? I mean that. But it doesn't change the fact that Einstein was right about various things. People remember that. And people don't like that, generally speaking, in this day and age. Especially when I talk about, like, okay, so this is right, this is right, this is right. I don't even have to fucking try. You know what I mean? And it's like, but, hey, you want me to? Give me some money, give me some people, give me some time, and I'll do it. And I'll show it to you. And it's like, well, must be under something. I'm probably right about something. You know what I mean? That's how you know it. You're probably right about something because there's a reason for that person to not do it. If he's right about anything, my entire reputation. And it's like, no, if you're willing to do it, it's like, oh yeah, no, absolutely. I'm not that guy, right? So, but for what it's worth, it's like, all I see, if anybody's willing to fucking try and say that, which they usually don't do it in my comments, I'll tell you that much. And they'll try and do the well-meaning approach, which is like, no, you should do this diagram for this, and you should, and it's like, I'm not that channel, I don't give a fuck. I'll do whatever the fuck I want, I don't give a fuck. You're either along for the ride or you're not. That's it. That's what this channel is always going to be. You want something else like that, I'll fucking make another one, but I don't give a fuck. You know what I mean? So, a smart person will usually stick around and probably think I'm right about one thing or another, or straight up agree with me on almost all of it, or all of it. And I don't mean that like you're a smart person to do, like, no, I mean that as in like that's already a smart person and they already know. You know, like that's why they stuck around. They're already a person that knows. You know, like it doesn't take a lot to know about that kind of side of that, right? It takes hard work and effort, sure. You have to put a lot of constant thought and energy into it, yeah. Does it get in the way of you doing all these other possible things? Sure. Is it worth it? Yeah, every time. Every time it's worth it. Every time. It changes everything. Your entire perspective, all of it, changes. It's totally worth it. That's what it is. But I talk about that mostly because it's like, all right, so we're almost 2 hours in, and so most of you are probably left. So here's where the type of people that stuck around and liked the whole thing are probably at. All right. We need to come up with another word for certain sexualities. It's a bit weird that we're making a version effectively of homosexuality for kids and certain people exist. Right? We don't do it for like, we call it a fetish, right? For sexual acts, but then it's like, yeah, but that's, I mean, I suppose, yeah, but, you know, it's just part of the sexuality after a while, right? For like anyone, you know? That's how you feel comfortable. That's how you get in the mood. That's how you want sex, right? And so it's this hard one for me, especially because it's like, no, that's just a kink. That's just a fetish. That's just like this. It's like this is a philia, right? And I'm like, I don't know if you know this, but they did the same thing for the vast majority of that rainbow crowd until they were allowed to call themselves asexual. Right? And that's your face, most likely going through that. Right? Like, I already went through that myself. I think, ooh, shit, right? That's a bit shocking, right? And it's like, yeah, but is it? You know, like, obsession about one thing. You can only have sexual desire for that. That implies that that person has an ability to have sexual desires for something else. But that's not the case. I mean, you used to call that a fetish, right? For a particular type of kink. Like you really only like that, right? But that's also not the case. You know what I mean? For a lot of that. And a kink is, less extreme of that. So, and most people that are knowledgeable in that kind of thing know that it's like a very large spectrum. Very large. Like a very, very large spectrum of multitudes for a lot of people. That's what that is. And age is in there, sure, but there's a lot of body types, skin colors, personality traits, money, a lot of that. So it doesn't really make sense to make it only about gender. It's a very odd one, and that's another one of the whole, well, there's a lot of people that are in that space that are like, well, we might have to rewrite a lot of this. Same thing in like psychology, neurobiology. So it turns out that our brains can maybe possibly get affected by various quantum phenomena. And that might end up being an extrasensory perception for some. Not across the board for everyone, right? But at the same time, that means a bunch of neural biology textbooks and individuals that are being taught that, and were taught something, are going to have to change their minds and thoughts about stuff. And how they diagnose and what criteria they use for how they image brains even. If that happens to be there, then that would influence those results. So it's that problem again where a lot of things are changing rapidly in a place that people had typically only seen some change over a decade or three, maybe even half a century. And we barely even wanted to make PTSD a thing for war veterans. You know what I mean? Like, no, it's just shell shock. Good old George, you know, fucking Carlson or whatever it was, being a dick. You know what I mean? Like, that, it's a dick thing to say after a while. Yeah, like, there's a lot of different ways, like, how trauma and abuse can influence your behaviors, and, you know, you don't have it because it's an autonomic response. It's that part of your brain, your amygdala. They'll be attached to your autonomic nervous system, those signaling pathways for your central nervous system, for heart rate, breath, oxygen, hormones, stress, rest, digest, all that. And it's a huge one. You're asking someone to literally fight something that's automatic, like their body's just, and it's going. And then the brain can effectively, if it is necessary sensory, it's trying to interpret something that no one around it really has an ability to easily do. That's why we start with the sensors. Right? Sensors are easy. It's easy. You work on your hands. Right? A brain that's moving around, a brain that's actively thinking, and there's a person there, dies if you fuck it up. So, generally, you don't want that to happen. So, you'll say some bullshit to yourselves, right? Where it's like, no, I'd rather it just continue being this thing that I've always had it be. Yeah, but no, actually. Can't really do that. Then it's not even getting into like chemical processes, which can absolutely be influenced and impact us, that are fully, like with birds, they have these little proteins in their eyes that can most likely see a large amount of the electromagnetic fields around them. There is nothing stating that there isn't something that our brain can ultimately also have as an issue that's similar. So, we like to think that our 5G and all that, right? And hold your horses, okay? Because it's like, well, yeah, most likely no. I'm gonna go with no, mostly because it's not powerful enough, right? Right. But there's every bit a likelihood of some fucking interaction down the line that is affected in some aspect by some amount of electromagnetic spectrum, meaning light or fields in general, right? And what those chemicals are that our body organically or inorganically tries to filter, whatever it is, because honestly, as our neurons work, that's a protein pump, just as an FYI, and an ionic exchange more often than not, to produce the electricity and have the facilitated synaptic network weight one given amount of increased electricity or looping network or signal profile of a given decision and default mode networks and so on, and how they react and interact, right? And it's like, here's the thing, the body's skin and our nerves send signals to our brain. We've known for a long time how that if we press on certain ones, we get different responses. And some of them are body hacks. Some of them are more significant and actually work a lot more than others. Some of them are almost non-existent for some, and others are massively significant. depending on different compounds involved, right? It's been shown pretty consistently to varying degrees, although there's different thoughts and beliefs as to the validity of this. But it's known that some people can absolutely sense electromagnetic fields with just their bodies. And some are possibly better at it than others. Right? Again, validity is a thing, and when I look at it, it's like, so variable control turns for me into, if there's someone that is a hyper responder to a given thing, that doesn't mean that they're not. It just means that they're popping up as something in your study as being that. You know what I mean? And consistent, activation, as in like, so this magnetic field type, or that type of magnetic field, or this strength of flux, movement or not, stuff like this, all gets into variable control problems for me, because like none of them are very consistent. None of them are much of anything as to test what may or may not. And it's junk pseudoscience to a lot of scientists, except for the ones that know anything about like organic biology, like as if fishes don't do it. You know what I mean? Like, or as if birds, or like, it starts weighing a lot, because it's like, well, that for me is the reason why the face does what it does. In terms of like possibly an influence of a causal set theory type of, future or in real time, watch, observation, and changes in a quantum situation as a collapsing state that then gets over time indirectly amplified. We already have knowledge about our nose having quantum interactions that allow for us to have smells. It's flabbergasting to watch a bunch of retard people get backed up by genuinely knowledgeable people that seem very intelligent. At first. And then they spout nonsense like that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, no, it can never be a thing. There's no way it's possible. And it's like, we the real scientists can do some work over here. Whatever that is, you stick to your study, I guess. You're good at that. You know what I mean? But, don't get involved in here. We don't need your kind around here. He's stupid. Like, you don't even know the first clue as to, like, why it is a classical fermionic can interact with a non-classical quantum. But it's like you're doing it on a daily basis. And you're like, the very idea that it could even possibly fathom-wise, oh my God, it happened, is like, I don't know, man. Especially, and we're pretty good, our brains, at generalized tasks. We're not specialized. So, like, we're pretty decent at generalized things. And trying to come up, with something, right? So, it's a hard one for me to talk to a bunch of people that are accredited, seem legitimate, have a big black and white crowd, that are, for all intents and purposes, missing a large amount of the knowledge to even say what it is they say as being something credible or knowledgeable or legitimate. You know what I mean? Like, that's like a neurobiologist. right? It's like, ooh, a lot of them don't really know about, classical or quantum physics, right? They know a lot about neurobiology, but then they'll say like it's not possible, or they will say it's possible, and they won't really have the the ways there it could be done, right? And some of them are really knowledgeable, and I love them because usually they're on my side. You know what I mean? Usually they're on my side, but like, it's hard because it's like you can talk to a skeptic like a Simon Whistler, and the guy and others will genuinely feel as though that they've got something, and they'll be a smarmy, smirky little prick, and they're not really actually someone that has anything. It's all well and good to doubt, but it's like, well, internal combustion engine was eventually made. We did go to the moon, so as far as I'm aware, we're getting better every day at certain things. So, doubt's great and everything, but what we've noticed in nature, it's had millions of more years on us to figure something out. You know what I mean? And that's a hard one, because then it's like it's just suggesting that you were born. Well, yes, yeah. No, I meant more that with something special. No one's special. Certain people have the ability to metabolize certain medications more than others. Is that special to you? No, that's just normal. Okay. So, others can see a little better, right? Yeah. No, actually not. You caught the next one, right? I was trying to lead you there. Yeah. It's like, I don't know, man. You want me to be really truthfully, dreadfully honest about it? The answer is like we might honestly have a fucking situation where there's a lot of that's going on that we just prefer to not think is, because it's hard, right? Like, we were wrong about pedophilia. No, you were right about like wanting to protect individuals that are less informed and can be more easily taken advantage of. You were just wrong about the way that you went about it, and you went really overzealous about the violence and aggression and anger that you had, which is normal. I mean, most of us are quite sensitive, right? And hey, guess what? That's, man, we want to make sure things aren't hurt. That's including ourselves. Like as if it's not degrees of selfishness there. Like, we don't want to make sure that we're not also hurt by them also not being hurt, because of course we get hurt when that happens, right? That's empathy and sympathy. So it's this other issue though of disregarding the truth, where it's impossible and like across the board. And it's like, oh no. You didn't let me finish because you don't understand. We've proven many times over that there is a highly individualistic aspect to children in their development. That's not even getting into how consistently earlier we thought we were going to see certain development milestones in terms of delayed gratification, planning ahead, predictive analysis, empathy, sympathy, understanding, pain caused, or knowing that they are, of course, not okay with something, and more. More consciously aware of themselves and what's going on than we believed ever. Like, it took a lot for a lot of people to suddenly really enter that into the conversation, because the thought was the moment of a certain trimester. And well, it's looking a lot more like it's well after birth. Okay. Right? And that tends to irk certain people that paid a lot of money for that kind of study to be done, and many of them to be done. So, they didn't like that part. But, like, then again, I'm also that person that goes, like, yeah, but you didn't really have a lot of trouble eating that cow that's at, like, 6 years old levels of, like, human people. So, I don't see that. It's different when it's us, though. It's like, right. Yeah, but I feel like that's a cop-out. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like that's a cop-out, like, pretty hardcore. Because it's like, when you're an adult, it didn't suddenly magically become less special, if that's the case, right? And you treat it like it is. Like, man, that 30-year-old that got abused and taken advantage of by some motherfucking 18-year-old that learned how to fucking schmooze, right? And make them feel really special. Yeah, and it's like, no, the fucking 30-year-old should have known. And it's like, not every fucking adult, man, knows. Some people are naive for a really long time. And it's like, no, you, that adult, should. And it's like, that's not how that works. And the abuse is still the abuse. And it's still just as significant when you're an adult, just as much as when you're a kid. And you're going to have to live with it for decades or longer. It doesn't go away. Okay? And you treat it like it's not as bad. Like it's somehow special because, like, they're this young. That's not how that works. That's not how that works at all. Abuse is abuse. Okay? And being taken advantage of doesn't mean just sex or a relationship. It's vulnerability and intimacy. It's money, right? There's a lot there. And we treat them all differently, and it's like, nah, well, I mean, depending on the context of the individual, sure, yeah, okay, yeah. But, it's just as bad. It's just as bad. And we don't really care about protecting a lot of them, and we barely give a fuck often for kids, although, like, it really ranges. Like, there's overreactivity for the kids, and then there's underreactivity for the kids, and there's a lot more underreactivity for adults, and very little consideration for adults very often, right? And I have a problem with that one, because it's a clear double standard that they often, cognitively speaking, just have dissonance about all the time. It's a big problem, actually. Where a lot of people they're taking it, well, you'll get over it or whatever. It's like, you have no idea. That could genuinely be something that's going to make it such that they just never try and have any relationship forever. And they don't treat it like that. You know what I mean? And you get to being an adult, you don't learn, you don't get an education, and we expect each other to go in brute force through many relationships. They might not be people that can handle those things. They can't brute force it by trial and error and large amounts of negative experience that could be there, right? So that's not a good one, and it's not really a good way to do it. You know what I mean? Like, you're not going to talk at all? None of us are going to talk about this? We should talk a little bit about this. Come on, and so it's for me. It's like, oh, look, it's depending on what it is. When we're talking about like an obsession, and it's like a lot of people might not maybe think that this is possible. Shocker, it is. Okay, so I'm gonna fill you in on a little secret here. A lot more men and women are able to be attracted to children, teens, young adults, and people older than even themselves then you think it doesn't make them an hebephilia, or pedophile at all in any way. But you'll call them that. And they'll think because you could be, that means that's all that is. And it's the bisexual problem or a pansexual problem. It's like, no, again, it really doesn't matter that much. It's really more about these other things I consider versus those. And that's one of my issues I currently face when it comes down to myself. I'm one of those individuals that older than me or younger, much younger, okay, and I can be attracted, but I'm also that visual guy, like clearly. I like certain physical looks more, obviously, right? But then that's a wide range in its own right? And, it's not like a ubiquitous always, and it's so fast. The moment someone might say something or express a certain type of view or have a given type of sexual kink or stuff like this, like you can be ridiculously less intelligent than me, okay? And that is okay. I'm not going to be super against that. In fact, at all, it really isn't going to be something that bothers me that much. But there's a point where it's like, okay, now I'm more of a caretaker. You know what I mean? It's a little. I'm more of like your caretaker, right? Yeah, which it's couldn't work, But that's typically there's a point where it'll start becoming less something I can be attracted to, right? Not across the board. It really does depend, of course, right? But again, same thing with, there really isn't a limit on intelligent, like if you're more intelligent, that is. There isn't really. If anything, I'm like, well, do I hit that area at least? You know what I mean? Like for some of it, because, same thing, right? And then we've all kind of acknowledged with a lot of ourselves that there's a certain point of attraction below which you are now really longer attracted to them, right? Physically, right? And that's okay. Most of us are okay with that until it turns into a conversation with certain people that are like only the personality. And I'm like, that's great for you. I still like certain things. Yeah, I know, like, it's what it is, like, I'm not, man, that physical, I can't get into that. No. Whatever that is, right? And then it's like, well, yeah, you really don't have to worry about me caring about your gender identity. So long as, like, the right parts between your legs are there and you look good enough, right? Then it's about personality and kinks. Like, you can be way, like, more broke than I am, I guess. It's a good way to put, like, man, I'm broke as fuck. I have no real income. I'm trying to get my shit together, right? And then you can be way below me, and I'm still in. It's not gonna bother me. Like, I mean that, right? I do expect, like, that, still care about me, do what we can, acknowledge what we can and cannot do, help each other out what we can and can't on that end, right? But, like, that, right? But it's like, right, and then there are those that are basically, if you don't have all of this, and then some people shame them for that. Because some of it's pretty unrealistic, right? But then I don't know. Like, it does depend on that person, and it's like figuring out how to approach those individuals that might have more likelihood chances of being into you, right? That's what that would be. Now, it's like, it's too direct, it's too specific, blah, blah, and it's like, yeah, no, but that's kind of all I like, right? But then it's like, wait, is that actually what you like? Or is that something you feel as though you need or have to have? Like there's attraction and sexual attraction and all of this. But it's like, no, I won't allow myself because of mental whatever. But that doesn't mean that you actually are attracted to them, you love them, you're going to be happy or any of that. Which is a huge, starkly contrasting difference between men and women, for sure, but also America versus a lot of other places in the world. Okay, like other places in the world are okay with like, you know, just being desired because of whatever type, right? And same here in America, okay? But there's a definite preference in a lot more places outside of America, with women especially, for love, regardless of the money coming in or the power or the status. But if you stay in America, you'll find that a lot of the women are very much more regardless. It's like, oh, I want that, but like, I don't have to have it. If I had that, I'd take it over that. You know what I mean? And that's a really shitty thing for men, right? Because it's like, well, no. If they don't have this look, blah 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 stuff, and all of a sudden you'll talk to a woman that's really upset about that. But it's like, no, I'm just a money bank, right? I'm just a status symbol. I'm just the whatever. So it's pretty rough on both sides. It's just shit. I'm letting you know, it's like pretty fucking bad both ways on that one. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's like find the right person that's really looking for the real stuff, is what that is, which is what I'm looking for. Like it wouldn't matter if I was homeless with you, it wouldn't matter if I was, the richest person in the universe or on the planet or whatever, right? As long as the love is the love, that's good. That's really what I am. You'd be hard pressed to find a lot of women like that, especially here in America. Especially when it's like, no, well, I'm gonna have kids and it's expected, blah 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 blah, and all that, and then it's like, no, you couldn't possibly raise them, like in another way, right? I don't know, man. It feels like you could maybe, but it's like no, because he's polyfidelity. He'll only maybe be with me because of, and it's like, you do realize I like love everybody that's in that with me. You know what I mean? Like it's not the equivalent of I just want to sleep around, right? A lot of polyamorous are like that too. Although to a degree, it's a little bit more sleep around to be less tied down, but it's not quite the same. Like polyfidelity is very exclusive with the people that are there, and there's the possibility depending on type of kink here, of bringing someone in, but you got to work your way in, that kind of thing. Polyamorous, it's a lot more like you're more exclusive, but it's not the the sex isn't the intimate. It's like doing things is, right? Like being together, like it's kind of like you're more than friends with a benefit. That kind of thing. That's a lot more consistently planning together your lives, right? And you're allowed to think of it, at least, that kind of way, that in terms of like more sleeping around, but they tend to also pussyfoot a little bit about the fact that it's like, yeah, but you're a lot more often more exclusive with each other, and you want to stick around, right? Or this person is also with them, but you don't have to be with them. Whereas polyfidelity is like everybody's with everybody, that kind of thing. And that's a big difference to polyamorous, right? Or swinging. And same thing with me being like, like a type, I guess, of pansexual. It's gynasexual, like the female form, but it's like, yeah, but like, you can be fairly androgynous. Like you can still have masculine features, but it's like you still have to be feminine, right? Like that's still a thing, right? And yeah, again, I don't really give a fuck what the hell your gender identity. I'm still gonna call you whatever pronoun you want and say that's what you are. But like the kink is the kink, or the neural activation of I want to fuck is still what it is. You know what I mean? So it's like that's what that is, right? And it's like I'm working around the idea of like I'm that sort of a type of, but it's like nah, I'm not really. At least not what they effectively apparently already have labels, right? And it's like I'm very controlling, very own, very dominant, very all that. I cannot. I literally hate the idea of being not that, right? So I'll never do it. It's just not a thing. Like, think about how I came up with the idea that my brain itself can control reality. It's like, fuck this. I control it all! you know? So the opposite of what it is you might expect. If you were thinking like no, it's just to put it on airs, or it's like he thinks he has to be a certain way or whatever, or no, but he doth protest so much. Lame, right? Fucking stupid. It's really stupid. So no, but that being said, people can interpret a lot of that differently. Okay, like a woman, performing anilingus, eating you out anally, right? It's like someone will think of that as a dominating act, and I'm like, well, I'm sitting on her face and then using either her friend or one of the other ones, or I'm using your own breasts, or just fucking going to town with her hand, whatever, right? And it's like, yeah, I don't know. Is that her dominating me at that point? I'm like, bend the fuck over, bitch. Get down in there. And it's like, I don't see that being that way. You know what I mean? I don't see it at all being where she's dominating. At all, or he, or them, or whatever it is. So, like, that's what that is, right? But then it's also on another side where it's like, no, I love to just sort of lay back and let them do work, because first and foremost, it's like, fucking hell, I don't have to do nothing, and like I get to control and dominate you. Like, did you get me off? Did you get to make me feel good enough, right? Like, right? You know what I mean? Like, and in fact, I don't even have to do anything. You have to do all of it, right? But they're like, no, that's like pampering, and you're like a dommy mommy or something. Like, I definitely don't like that one. It's the opposite of that. Right? And it's like, well, yeah, but some people won't see it like that. And it's like, yeah, but that's not what we'll be looking at it like. You know what I mean? So it's like whoopee-doo, right? Like whoopee, spin the little thing, noisemaker, right? That's what it sounds like. A person that's chirping and chiming in would be doing. That's the point I try and make when it comes down to conceptual perceptions. So it's like, you have to understand that the other person is also perceiving it like this because we had this conversation. And that this is what it's supposed to be about, right? And it's like the very mental, like, because it's very mental. A lot of us are all very mental. Like sex, intimacy, that. Love, vulnerability, all that. That's very mental. That's what gets us going, more often than not. Instead of the very physical, which might attract you at first or whatever, right? But mental is what tends to make anything stick. So, it's a big thing though, because it's like, oh well, so you're into all of these things, and it's like most of the people I'm looking for are probably into everything that I'm talking about. Like on a lot of my my descriptions in my Reddit, right? For the kinks I'm into, and the stuff that I cross post onto my page, it's like, you'd be surprised how many people are very much into very similar things, if not exactingly the same thing. I get a lot of insight, they look at into the insight, thing. You're like, how many people looked at this? And it's always more than there are people that are following me on my Reddit. So you'd be really hard pressed after a point. You know what I mean? To be like, are they? And it's like, yeah, no, there are. There's for sure are people there, But it's what it is in terms of like, okay, but that's a part. Like, I literally don't like anything other than, like, I can't even get going, right, without it. Like, I need to have a power dynamic. I need to be above. I need to be in control. I need to be dominating. I like to let go and trust, to have you perform and show to me, and more like that, right? And so it's not in any way the same that a lot of people might expect, in terms of like sexuality here being something that would possibly be only just gender. Like, gender could genuinely be like construed in so many ways that is not what it is. Like, all you have to do is dress a certain way, act a certain way, and a person might look at you, and that's why you call them traps. You know what I mean? Like, no, I don't like that, because you've got the dick, right? Or you've got the vagina. And it's like, yeah, but you did, though. Like, really, realistically, you like that. You like this look. You didn't like a gender. You have that as a preference. You have that as a need. Like, you can't get going without it unless you have that in there. In the bedroom, in those moments, right? You can't do it. But if they have this look and they act these ways, they'll get you every time. And so it's like, you're really not gender sexuality. You're look perception sexuality. Your mental perception sexuality. That's what you are. Like, the vast majority of you, right? Like, if they fool you well enough, you'll be okay. That's all it is. Which is the whole point. It's like, all right, so let's say they really were 500 damn years old and they looked like a fucking goddamn toddler. Like the fucking famous anime hentai argument, right? Right? Like that argument. And it's like, well, in the future, maybe sometime, that's going to happen. It's like, what are you going to do? Right? Like, what are you really going to do? Are you not going to fuck your wife or your husband just because they want to, de-age for a while and age back up or whatever it is, right? Like, they're still a fully grown adult. What are you going to do? And maybe they just want to spice things up. I mean, it's something to do. So I look at people like that, and it's like, no, you're so weird. Is what they say to me, right? As I'm looking at them, and I go, so have you considered, like, that talk in the bedroom with your significant other there? Like, what if you did live long enough? Like, you're aging, your wrinkly old bones, all that. But they have a process here that's going to get you back down to being a toddler. But that's, and then you're going to grow back to being older. All right? But that's, so you live longer. Like, that's what it is. Like, that's the only way to de-age right now. All right? Would you fuck? Would you take turns? Who would do it first? Would you stagger it a couple of years? Does it work faster for women or men? Is that going to play into the family or the bedroom dynamics there? Because I'm wondering, honestly. Like, I'm honestly wondering. It's like, I know me. I'm going to be okay regardless. But, like, right? Because the fact is, it's like, well, you didn't know that you were attracted to minors. If you say yes and you were okay, you were attracted to minors. You're fine. All it takes is the mental. It was safe enough. It was the context is that like no one's getting hurt. Consent is obviously there, right? Which is literally what I argue for in a lot of my shit. So it's like, what do you think, really, honestly? Like, how many of you really just say because of various online or attitudes in your life or whatever, but because it's not with this private person or these individuals you could trust or whatever, that you wouldn't ever, and that's bad. Like, you really couldn't get into it. How many of you are really lying? I know I'm not now. I used to lie a lot more when I was younger. I used to lie a lot more when I was a younger adult. I was really afraid. And I don't anymore. You know what I mean? So that was a good way of getting around some of my... Because I also had to pursue some of my darker parts. Petty passive-aggressive behaviors, spiteful behaviors. What ifs that for thought experiments, find me being really uncomfortable. Like this one I just presented. Right? When you think about it like that, it's like, okay, right. Same thing with science. Same thing with neurobiology. Same thing with government. Like, how many of them are you going to end up going to where you're like, oh, actually, turns out I wasn't, willing to consider things just because I was afraid. It's just, thoughts can be scary. Knowing something about yourself that would make it such that you're a bad person all of a sudden is scary. I'm not a bad person. A person that says I'm a bad person, they're usually a bad person or trying to hide something about themselves. Or they're basically normal, right? And I can guarantee you they're not. I can find something about them that's abnormal to someone. And they'll say, no matter what, you're the bad person now. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. It doesn't work that way. That's not how that works. Your intentions behind things, the meanings behind things, your actions, your decisions over a long enough time, that'll really make you a bad person. And I'm a very good person, but at the same time, it's like I've made my mistakes and I've done dumb shit. And I'm not right about everything. Okay, I'm usually right about a lot of shit. I'm that, unfortunately, to a large amount of people. I think it's like a superpower with ADHD people. Like, honestly, like a lot of people that I've met with ADHD are very good at predictive analysis, right? But like, then there's that, and then there's that. You know what I mean? Like, there's even intelligent levels of it, and then you put a lot of work in it, whatever. And then there's me. You know what I mean? It's just like, so the weather I was not aware of. A tidal wave that hit Fukushima that nobody would have believed at all that would have happened, right? Right? Various volcanoes and earthquakes, exact date and times. Right? People, their socials, never met them. Random, stars just deciding to black hole, turn into a black hole, what the fuck is that? And I wish I had recorded all of it, put it all down, you know what I mean? Because it's just like, man, just throw some fucking shit, right? That's kind of what it feels like. Or, I put some work in or whatever, but like, is it going to be a thing, right? Then it was like, yeah, there's some hackers, sure, whatever, but... they're always looking around, the weirdos. Stupid, weird things. Anyways, but then it's like, oh, shit. And then, I tried to kill myself a few times. I was traumatized in a few different ways. I was like, oh, man, maybe that's just the basic, explanation for, like, how I ended up losing my memory. Some random seizure or stroke or whatever, sleeping. Or... or some other bullshit, right? It's a combo of all that. And then next thing you know, I don't fucking remember, right? That can happen. That's a much simpler explanation, possibly. You know, it could be that and maybe some other fucking shit, because we did really honestly have my parents' back door open often at night because we didn't have AC and we couldn't afford all of that shit. So, I distinctly remember with no fucking doubt at all, I woke up to go use the restroom. And there's a guy that's in my fucking parents' bedroom that's like fucking running over towards where their bathroom is in their bedroom. And I'm like fucking saying out loud, pretty fucking loud, like, you know, like really fucking loud, you know. They don't wake up though. Fucking hate my parents sometimes, you know. The fuck is that, right? Anyways, we didn't have like the thickest of walls, but like they should be able to hear it, right? And I'm like, I don't know if he's got a weapon. I don't have a weapon. I don't know if I can get to, you know what I mean, like anything. So I'm gonna like calmly like, man, you know, and then I'm like suggesting get the fuck out of here, you know, because it's like that's all I can do really, you know, and whatever might happen. Anyways, point is, I feel the guy and hear the guy fucking leave. Never told my parents because like they're not gonna believe me. You know what I mean? Like none of you are likely to believe me either. You know, and so it's like. Meanwhile, there are several break-ins into our neighbors' houses before and after. I come to find out. And so it's like, yeah, you know, I was going to try and chalk that up to hallucination or some shit, and man, I can't do that to myself. That was a real thing. That really happened. Okay, all right. And then it's like, but behold, all of these predictions, even living in this apartment, right? Like, well, years in advance, right? I know, exactly, yeah, There's some things that have to help that out, right? You know, even for like this apartment and all the rest of that, then you know maybe hackers or whatever's there. You know, that doesn't go with earthquakes, volcanoes, natural disasters in general, or astronomical phenomenon. It doesn't really do that, or like without any actual expertise or any experimental data to back anything up, various quarks, quantum phenomenon, and more. Even how to subdue and de-randomize some of the noising of quantum vacuum pressures and qubits and more turned out to be correct. The people that wrote the study that I said that would later do it after I said it here in my parents' house, right? And that's, you know, what that happened to be. Were then the ones that then wrote those studies. So you can see where it might lead me to conclude that maybe some of the hackers got involved, maybe there's some government, whatever, right? You know, instead of like, man, it's predictive, and I saw the future or whatever, and then now it's like, well, maybe the fucking hell I can, right? Like, I mean, there's predictive, and I'm right often, and then there's like fucking really right a lot, or I can even make things right. Right? And that's how like a schizoid personality, like you probably believe I have, tends to appear to people, right? Until like, oh, what do you know? Well, if I went through all of the super logical, reasonable, rational, all that stuff that I am, has to go through all that, and then it's like, and then that's what that, and then when do I start fucking believing it? What's the statistical probability of some of this? I need to look that up. And I'm like, fucking hell, I should have started believing that back before I was homeless. yeah, before I got kicked out of that house. Uh, with the number of events I did it with. And so, that was insane. You know what I mean? I had a psychological break, and I eventually ended up in a mental health hospital. You know, not too long, and people were following me and all that. You know, just typical, I'm a schizophrenic, I'm not going to believe my shit. No, I refuse. Kind of stuff. And now I'm here. So there's that. There's that going on. And then it's like, yeah, you tell someone, unless they have the same information I have, and they get it correctly instead of an edited version, that's really phenomenally easy to do. Like, if they're a hacker, they can't like alter ultimately any given type of XGIF data or any logs of when it was recorded. Of course they could. Clip it, edit it, and they already have like AI programming that can change your voice and modulate it. So I wouldn't really trust as much as you think, like, unless you can get the original, like actual original data, which is like, I lived it, so you know. Yeah, it tends to help that, you know, like I was the guy doing it, so you know. As I walk over there or whatever. That tends to help, right? And so it's like, oh man, I'm going to be able to tell anyone out there, and they're just going to believe me, right? Meanwhile, it's like, here's a bunch of ways to maybe do it. Maybe do it. Some experimental ways of, without shadow of doubt, and proving, no matter what, that happened. Right? Like, oh, go fuck yourself, any prosecutors and shit, you know? You know? You know, any naysaying bullshit, guess what? I can do that. But, of course, there's always that, you know, you gotta do the thing, right? So, like, there's no money for me that I can do it with, and I always hope that maybe someone will believe or something. At the very least, the meritable nature of my designs. My concept designs, if you're smart enough, most likely you know that they will work. You know? Which means that there's something there that isn't just, well, there's no reason for them to have looked. Maybe they also noticed the pattern of, like, you couldn't possibly have predicted that. Maybe there is something here, and then try to take advantage, right? Pretty simple stuff. Right? So, like, there's reasons there. And then there's like, no, because you also admitted to that, and then you then try and take advantage that way, too. And it's like, don't care. Don't care at all. I never have to. You know what I mean? That's a general rule of thumb. I don't have to, like, have a bunch of reasons for it. You know, that I can do some special whatever. Fact of the matter is, you don't have to care about things like that. Like, you let them have control over you, whoever's in your life, if you care about whatever that is. And so, like, that's a way to effectively talk about that kind of situation, where it's like, okay, so then I know what you're doing. Like, they're clearly going to lead us into now that it would be okay and fine and acceptable to, like, try and say, you know, maybe that's a thing. Shocker, wow. No. Like, you're on board with most of that, but no, this is where we're going to draw the line. Meanwhile, a bunch of really smart people that know a thing or two and have a lot of experience. We're going to have to do some, like, subtle, hey, what about this, and what about that, and hey, you know, maybe, have you thought about this? You know, maybe this is a thing. I know what you're doing. What, just giving some thoughts out? You know, what if maybe that was a thing? You know, what if perhaps this, you know, right? And it's like, no, don't do that. That's normal shit. Like, why wouldn't I do that? You know, like, right? And it's like, how long until you eventually admitted that gay people were acceptable? How long did you still continue using the word fag? And oh my god, that's so gay. Before you finally put it to bed. Like how many? How many years? How long after, right? It's a big deal, you know? And like this one, it's one of those things where it's like, well, regardless, you need to know how to fucking not have kids when you're too young for them. Okay? You know, and you're going to be curious, and eventually you'll realize it's, well, fun, or, you know, some of it can be fun, or, you know, it depends. It has varying degrees of special to not. You know? It's just sex. And it's like finding out that, like, there's no reason to be weirded out by your own, like, whatever you're attracted to or enjoy. Like, you're not bad just because of that. Until you get to the point where I'm intentionally going to fuck all over people, right? Be a manipulative gabagoo, a narcissist, like that kind of thing. And it's like, yeah, no, you should be ashamed of that, but like you're not going to. Like, I wouldn't be able to talk to you anyways about that. You know, like, this is for other people that are like myself, that actually have empathy and sympathy and care. You know, or are intelligent, most likely, right? Versus you. So, that kind of thing. Because it's hilarious. It's like, you're somewhat intelligent. I'm not willing to say that you are. It's like, the Rage Beatty title probably got you, huh? The Rage Beatty title probably got you, I imagine, right? Yeah, you know what I mean? You know? You didn't want to listen to the entirety of the genius paradigm shifting, women cultural training, you know, from the mansplaining. Or how about any of the numerous different fucking science ones I've got? You know what I mean? It's like, oh wow, watch them fucking freak thinking that this isn't a thing. And I'm like, it sucks being intelligent. You know, it does suck. Like, being super smart sucks. Like, you can talk to a lot of seemingly really, really smart people, and they won't be able to grasp what you're talking about. Or even think that it's possible that this is right. Because, effectively, they don't know a lot about all the other stuff I'm talking about, but they know about this thing, but then they might not have understood this, or how that relates, or any of the rest of it. And it turns into like, man, I gotta get like this massive team, a huge team, to just be able to pick apart all of this shit, you know what I mean? And then it's like, well, okay, then, no, because actually, and then they'll start the debate and everything, and they're like, that would be an amazing experiment, this would be really great, this could work. Oh my god, how did he come up with that? And you'll end up realizing it's like, dude's really fucking stupid levels of smart. Stupid intelligent. You know, geniuses could literally come and go and not approach that. So, and then you end up realizing it's like, well, you know, I don't test very high on IQ stuff. You know, like the little, you know, multiple choice stuff. Mostly because I have a large amount of difficulty with knowing what it is exactly that they're looking for. Like, there's a lot of interpretation for the question that they ask, because they're typically, on average, thanks to personality stuff that they're looking for, sometimes too. You know, choices that they'll make based upon a given vague question. And I'm like, well, give me some specifics. And it likens, in my mind, to the moment when, I forget what the movie is, but the guy got struck by lightning. You know, a bunch of government employees come around. They ask him some questions. He's just futzing around, doesn't give a fuck, and he says, "Well, it's going to be this," and he goes off and does other things, right? And it's like that's effectively what this is to me often. It's like, well, it's not very significant. It's not very hard to understand this. You know what I mean? Like, could you give me some? I've most likely already done several different versions of that. And so when I look at the question, it's like, all right, so what specific type of pattern recognition do you want me to do? Like, there are multiple different types. Like, legitimately, there's like creative, artistic pattern recognitions. There's a type of emotional. There's a type of, specific. This line, are you looking for an analogous to this line, to this contrast line? Are you looking for this, circle to circle? Are you looking for this, solid to not solid? What type are you looking for? Because I can make an argument for more often than not, all of the multiple choices you give me, that I could argue so effectively that would be the correct choice. Which means, for me, it's like my creative intelligence and my ability to know how to ultimately piece together something into something else is higher than what their tests effectively couldn't adequately, measure me with. Which is often not the case. Often the case is, no, people are just randomly guessing. You know what I mean? They don't have a real reason for it. And I'm like, yeah, no, that's not what my problem is. My problem is, it's like, which one are you specifically looking for? Because I know you want a particular answer and you didn't actually label that particular answer. So you're looking for interpretational answers as your personality stuff. And I just would like to have a really high one. And so, like, which one are you looking for? Like that, no, it ruins our entire idea of an IQ test being valid. Oh. And I'm like, well, yeah, that's obvious. Most of the time they're not. Because they're pretty shitty. They're not very good. They don't test at all about any actual fucking puzzle piecing, deductive reasoning, logic, creativity, pattern recognition, solutioning, puzzle piece solutioning, any of it. They don't do practically anything. Even pattern recognitions is like, there's multiple different subcategory pattern recognitions. And like how you ultimately interpret data is insanely variable as well, depending on opportunistic knowledge variables of what it is that you ultimately know and how you interpret that and so on. And so it's essentially like, this is an irrelevant test on a paper. Most of you don't even know how to phrase a question correctly to someone that could fully do whatever that is if you just did that the right way, which is why I was talking about that specifically for kids. Okay, so like kids when they're younger, all right, can actually be talked to and phrased with a question way better and given a choice in such a way that they actually understand and know, unlike your dumbass is probably doing, and assuming that they can't. Because XYZ, they didn't actually have this part of their brain, which we measure in a scan perfectly, developed in such a way that now we know that they can't. And it's like, wow, look at this psychology fucking stupid article. Psych today. And I'm like, well, you're not very good at explaining things or setting up like a condition and environment in which they can understand and grasp what's going on easily, are you? I guess you are not someone that would have an easy time, typically, honestly speaking, talking to most of your college students. I'm guessing they wouldn't want to talk to you more often than not, right? No. And you don't know. The way you wrote that article, the answer is yes. The answer is they most likely don't. And those that want a better grade are going to suck up to you and most likely say that they do. Which it turns into a problem for myself, because it's like, because you're bad at something, that means it can't be done? That means nothing. Just because I'm really bad at explaining something to someone, that means they're unable to even learn. What? There are many different ways to explain anything. There are many different ways of giving an example physically, because sometimes it clicks in the brain better that way. You know, like you work on a project, like with your hands, you know, and you have a little robot that does things, and all of a sudden, like, you understand it and it clicks, right? And you're like, no! How? How the fuck? How in the world do you think what you think is the right thought in that situation? Same thing with like the IQ test. It's like, which one are you looking for? Like, you clearly want one of them. Which one is it? You're supposed to know. I'm supposed to know? What is this? Like we're in the 70s and like women just don't talk to their husbands, and I'm just supposed to predictively, analytically, like, know what all their needs are somehow? No, well, no. Are you sure? Because it sounds an awful lot like you're trying to find. Hey, what answer is this? I'll just use your brain. That's right. I'll just fucking look into your brain. Don't do that. If you could don't do that. You want me to predict it? Which answer is this? I'll give you a purposely wrong one. He doesn't want to know this. Oh, so this is the one. Okay, that's the one. All right. So like that's the one. And what about this one? No, don't do that. And then that one's in, and that one's in. I'm feeling this one, I'm feeling that one. And am I getting them right? It's not true, because I know what the answers are. And it's like, no, these are trick questions. There are technically no right answers here. You know, I did that in the 2nd grade. They gave us an IQ test. There was a question that had no right answers, and they threw out all the IQ tests. But I got no answers wrong on that. Like, the real one. Like, I know for a fact I didn't. Except for maybe one. Other than that one. You know? No, I got that wrong. Most likely. It does matter. Point is, the point is, it's like, new. I then had to redo it, and I was like, oh, well, this isn't actually important. They told me it wouldn't mean anything, like the test. Like, it doesn't mean anything at all. You know, and like, truthfully, I don't really want to have to suddenly do even harder work. So I don't really want to do well. And so then I just fucking barely put in effort for the next one that they had us do. I was like, oh, by the way, it turns out, this thing that I don't want to do, which is homework, I can mostly get away if I skirt away with just a little bit done and then get the fucking tests done. And it doesn't really matter if I have like a C or a D, as long as it's a passing. I don't really care. Like, then I don't have to get talked to or whatever. I'm like fucking 1st grade, 2nd grade, thinking that, and then I just followed through on it. I just never fucking did it. Like, homework, like, now it's 80% of your grade. Now it's 90%. And I'm like, whatever, I'm not going to do it. You still keep putting me in the next fucking, like, grade. I don't care. When's it going to matter? It's like, I still pass your test, like, they're nothing, honestly. I don't see what the problem is. I'm able to complete your classwork problems pretty easily. What's the issue? I don't know. Just shut up. And then it's like, in college, I did the same thing. You know, it wasn't that hard. I just never did any work. You know, I was like, no, I can't. Once I get home, I can't do it. And then I have a hard time unless I'm obligated to go to anything and do something. And so it's like, nah, I'm not going to do it. I'm paying money, you know what I mean? I dropped out of high school because of my mental health issues. My mom's basically forcing me to go to college. And she's like, no, you need to also put a bunch of fucking, like, work that you can't do. Like, you literally are barely functioning right now. Like, getting up out of fucking bed and not shitting your fucking bed. You know what I mean? Like, legitimately. And then it's like, no, but not even that. Here's a bunch of student loans you're going to take on because in the future, everything will, and then you'll have a job. She tries to kill herself, like, the very next year, basically. Like, I dropped out again, you know, a little bit for a while, and then I got back, and I was doing well. You know, I found some friends, you know, and I was tutoring someone, right? And I was trying to actually, like, you know, put work in, right? So that's what I was doing. And then she's like, everybody says you're doing better, and now all of a sudden, and that's basically, like, literally what I later found out was genuinely the case. Not at the time, when I thought about it, I was just fucking wrecked that my mom was trying to hurt herself. And so, like, I dropped out as a result of that. Yeah, no, I didn't do very well after that. Never went back. What do you know? So it's like, hey, you know. It was pretty boring after a bit. You know, I was like, what am I doing this for? Like, honestly, I can't even, like, sit in my damn computer chair and do any of the things that they want me to do. Like, I'm literally putting in 80% because that's, like, good enough, I guess. You know, like, I don't want to do any of the extra work. Like, it's like, no, if I do like that, then they'll think that I'm good, and, like, I'm a solid B. I don't really need to do any of the other things, you know? I'll most likely pass all the tests, and I did, and I didn't have a problem. It took, like, nothing, you know, but then it's like, that's basic community college stuff, right? But I was also the person that was tutoring someone else in my class, because I was so well far and ahead, and she knew it. So, and then it was like, same thing, I was also teaching people in our classwork for my programming. You know what I mean? So, I was like, no, I'm not going to ever do any of the work. I'm never going to submit a single fucking program that you wanted me to do. But, like, I'll help you actually understand this code that he just taught us. That I got, like, that. It was no problem. And it's like, that's C#, right? It's super easy, normal, you know, whatever. You know, when you've never programmed really except for, like, some basic, like, literally, you know. And so it's just like, oh yeah, no, that's not really that hard. Meanwhile, this is like the vast majority of people. And I'm barely putting in the work because I can barely put in the work. It's literally like the most work I was able to put in. Right? And people don't really understand that often. You know, like they have to brute for, like they have to work their ass off to understand things. And I don't ever. Like, it takes nothing for me to understand stuff most of the time. And so, like, when it turned into, like, the same thing with lots of physics, math, large concepts, you know, stuff like that, people tended to get annoyed with me, you know? And then it's the same kind of problem later on, too, that I had with my family. It was the same when I was a kid. So I would say to my parents, I was like, look, why don't you listen to me? I'm smarter than you. And they're narcissists, so that didn't go over well. Like, they are, though. You know, it presents itself quite often. I don't have to really prove jack shit to others, and you can't diagnose. And I'm like, I don't know, man. The vast majority of those therapists only know them in a very particular context, and they certainly don't ever like to acknowledge my side or view or any of the actual real stuff that really happened versus their version of events that you don't know anything and you're lying. And you must have misunderstood. And it comes out tremendously all the time on those text messages that I have also out on my Twitter, my Reddit, my Instagram, and my Facebook. So there's that. And it's like, nah, that's really kind of nothing though, right? Except actually it is. It speaks volumes about the fact that it's like, well, I actually, for what it's worth, that was pretty much my never-ending day-to-day. I was always told I was smart. I was always told I was a genius in one way or another. I was always aware of that. I was always more creative than I apparently was supposed to be. I was always right more often. Like, even my older sister and younger sister constantly complained about me being constantly right all the time, with not really knowing anything about it, right? And it's just like, oh, it's gotta be like this, right? And then, yeah, fuck you. You know, I spent like 4 hours trying to figure that out. You know what I mean? And like that's my everyday with my family, and then other people would do it too. So it's like, no. I had a really hard time understanding like why people didn't grasp things so quickly when I was a kid, right? And then I realized, oh, I always have to do a lot of subtle work and slowly lead people to, hey, it's an individual thing, and oh, by the way, your idea of this being relevant actually isn't because of these things, and I know you don't like this, but wait for it, there's even more. I can also do this, you know. And like, no, and that's just a simple fucking con, and everybody would say that. Right. And it's like proceeding all the YouTube channel, right? You know, standard fucking stuff, right? And it's like, no, this, and they're not going to be right, and you'll be proven wrong, okay? And the answer turns in, oh, he was right again? And then the jealousy, and then you can see why hackers would start happening, and government and corporations, and genuinely large individuals or entities that view themselves incredibly impressive and important, and bigger and smarter than others. And like are the go-to, they're the voice, they're the ones that, you know, would suddenly not like a guy like me showing up and talking out loud and being so knowledgeable, and then the hackers and all the rest, and why it led me to believe some of these things were there because of how often it happened. And then I also then realized the whole kid thing was a weird one, because when I was a kid, I remember talking to a lot of kids, even younger than my ass, about how much they wanted to fuck their teachers or their teenage sibling friends or their brother or sister that was older or their own mother or father. Just like not even a casual, you know what I mean? Like, it's the weirdest, you know, like kids still just fucking say shit when they're around other kids and they think they won't get in trouble. And I'm that guy. Like, I really won't say a jack shit to their fucking other friends or their parents. I wouldn't say anything. And so it was like, oh, that's the guy I can just fucking say shit to. Like, other adults, like my teachers, would do the same thing. They would say shit to me that would make no sense to talk to a fucking literal elementary school child about. And I got that now, as an adult. Like, I'm now, as an adult, I'm like, so you're saying it's not normal for them to bring up and ask for advice from me about, like, their husband, and then they got a divorce because of that? No. They really thanked me, too, afterwards, just an FYI. You know, and that's like that happened, you know, on that subreddit, on Reddit, right? Except that it really did happen, right? Like that, there were moments like that in my life that I just thought were normal. You know, no, I don't know what to tell you, like, because that's a real thing that happened with me. And then you know, as you get older, then you realize it's like, oh man, that motherfucker is the same as that fucking fourth grader when I was in fourth grade that was in my class. Like, that fucking 32-year-old in my community college is the same. Like, they are the same person, personality-wise, intelligence-wise, and all the rest. Right? That motherfucker in my community college is that fucking smart. They are a fourth grader. They never got further. They never got further along in their emotions. They never got anywhere. They never got better. And that was a stark, sudden realization because I'd been going through so much therapy that I never noticed, like, how much of a difference that had really been. Like, it was like, oh my god, I suddenly observed something that I never really observed before, and I'm really curious about it. So I'm going to really fucking look at it, right? And it turns out I'm really good at psychology, really good at anthropology, really good at sociology, really good at a lot of that. You know, like my therapist constantly talked to me about how I have a super brain, a supercomputer, you know, as a brain. And I'd give him analogies he loved because it was like so easy to like understand exactly what I was going through. And I realized I got so good at that because I always expected I'd have to do it with my mother or my father or other people around me that were my peers in school, that I couldn't really explain easily what I was thinking about. Because I would say one thing or another, and my vocabulary and the words I would use were too big, you know, or I would go too fast, or they wouldn't really maybe understand all of it, like this big, huge, like multiple paragraph thing that I was about to explain easily because they couldn't keep track of it like I could with no trouble, right? And so then it turned into, oh, well, this analogy, and it's like this, and and it's like, oh, so you're having this issue. Yeah, that's what that is. And it's like, that was my everyday with teachers, students, other students, right? And my family. I didn't really have very many friends, but like when I did, yeah, them too. And so that was my like actual day-to-day life. And when I realized that that's not a normal thing people can just do, like because I didn't have a lot of conversations with friends in real life, so it's like nobody's also just explaining things like this like all the time. Like not everybody else is also just like fully aware of quantum physics, you know. You know, like what about this? And then, well, which version are you specifically looking at? And then it's like, no, I'm looking specifically for that. Oh, okay, then it would be this. How did you do that? That was easy for you. How that, what? And it's like, well, yeah, you explained it easily, so I just did that one. That's what that was, right? Yeah, I mean, that's what it was, but like, and that's when I realized my mistake of being a person that is unaware of my intelligence. You know what I mean? Like, it irks a lot of fucking people often. Being so intelligent, being really able to easily predict and analyze any given situation and just know things and brute force everything all the time and have like almost next to no real need to do the work that others often do. And then on top of it, like being so far ahead often of others that could genuinely be forefronts of a given conversation, right? Like, they're the ones that are doing the studies. They're the ones that are on the leading edge, all that, right? And I could be ahead of them, you know, and that becomes a problem because I can talk to people, and I know this sounds pretty crazy, but I didn't know it at the time. Preference that one, you know, that way. But like, I didn't know it at the time that I was talking to some of the leading professors when I had to go to certain audiological appointments, and I, you know, chanced, you know, talking to someone, or you know, when I was a kid, or you know, stuff like that. You know, random, you know, happen chance. You know, going to the things like, you know, a walk, like a little walkathon of what it was, and then there was a convention in the area for I forget what it was, but it was some physics engineering thing, right? And then I talked to them, and it turns out they got something from that. You know what I mean? Like they were explaining something to me, and I paid attention, and I was like, oh, so then it's kind of like probably like this, right? Like, huh? You know what I mean? My dad had like a buddy, a friend of his that was working in a call center that he was at the time. I didn't know at the time that that's a thing that happens for a lot of people that go through a lot of PhDs or various other science, academia, that need to pay bills, right? And so, like 1990, 2000s, all that, it was a pretty good time for those because they paid a lot, right? They paid a lot. And so he had a buddy that was a real big mechanical engineer, electrical engineer, and I was talking to him, and I helped him out with one of his little things. And it later came out that that was a study that got performed after about that very thing that happened, and I never got referenced, of course, because who's going to believe that a kid helped an electrical engineer or mechanical engineer figure a big thing out, right? And I only know about it because, like, when I was young adult, and not going to school or anything, just fucking around online, curious about science and shit, coming across the study, referencing it, and I know the guy, right? And so it was like, holy shit, And then there's my grandpas. One is a mechanical engineer, another is basically another electrical mechanical engineer, something like that, right? Right, physicist, and then he's an English professor for a long time. Right, both constantly telling me I'm smart, all the time. Like, how did you know that? Well, because this would make sense, right? It's like, what the fuck? And so it's like, yeah, like it's a thing, but it's like, it runs in the family now. And it's like, well, they are very much engineers. My father's side grandpa worked on missiles or satellite technology, something like that. And then my mother's side was another engineer for the military, I think, or whatever, and then did something for Hershey's or some shit for manufacturing, right? And a whole bunch of stuff like that. And then I had an uncle that was big in satellite and radio technology, right? They call him, he died of prostate cancer, but he was the smart kind of guy. But then it's like, if you look at my other uncles, one of them's a carpenter that works with his hand and knows a lot about a lot of different wood and techniques and so on, right? Another one is another similar version in what he does, right? And then my dad's like a call center person, but it's not like he's stupid. Like, they're not that, right? So they're clever for what it's worth. My dad's smart and he's funny often, right? And then my mother's similar, right? Like, smart and clever, right? And they have issues, personality, whatever. So that's what that is. But it runs in the family. It does. Like, it's not like my older sister isn't creative. She's a left-handed individual, but she's very creative. My younger sister is clever as well, right? But not exactly super creative, but also has her own issues with learning deficits, okay? So it's like, I'm a person that's hard of hearing and was in like remedial courses, or had to be taught and tutor stuff. But it's like, yeah, I just didn't want to do that. I don't want to pay attention. I didn't whatever. I don't care. It's just this or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, I did that all the time. They're like, why are you writing the sentence above when it runs out on it? You should write it below. And I'm like, because, well, there wasn't really any space below, and maybe you could understand that it wouldn't go up to the top, because logically speaking, and you go over and you go down, and then it would obviously be finished at the top, because those are where the words would ultimately pick up back, right? Nope. She looked at me in disgust and screamed at me. I was like, what the fuck? It was a thing. You know what I mean? Just doesn't make sense. But it's like, it stands to reason that is doable, right? Like, you can just know. Then just take a look. Like, what way does it make sense to make it, like, ultimately work? Right? And it's like, well, obviously this way. And it's like, well, then now you got it. And it's like, right, IQ test. Which way does it make sense for it to work, given the given type of things that they're wanting you to focus on? Well, then it's this. Well, then, yeah, there you go. Not hard. And it's like, no, figure out how fast to put this puzzle together. And I'm like, you wanted it fast, or did you want it specifically one type of way that is only that way? Because that's what you're doing. Like, that's the personality thing. That's the IQ test. Right? Like, it's to look at someone who only will do the one thing. Not a solution. Not a it worked. Not a any of that. Just one specific type of directionality to take. And who can do it very quickly. Because it's a capitalistic process. They are literally looking for someone that can do something really quickly for a given solution that they have. And they only want it done the way that they would prefer. And so they'll look with those tests for that. That's all it is. And so it's like, all right, back to the kid thing. Only this way of teaching them is something that then means that they can now learn. Only this one way of putting an electromagnetic field around something. Only this one way. Only, and I'm like, you are stupid. You are being taught to be stupid. Look at that. Look at that. You're continuing to perpetuate the same issues. Look at it. And you all act like you're not. You didn't even notice. You know what I mean? You don't even notice that it's like, this can definitely be a part in a significant one of your given study for your organic chemistry or your synthetic chemistry or your biology or whatever it is. It wouldn't make much sense, not to have that knowledge too. That gives you solutions that are beyond which you currently understand it as. It makes no sense to only teach the one thing. It doesn't. That IQ test has always been irrelevant. But that being said, it's not fully. Just like before, it's like, all right, it's always been irrelevant, but it's not fully irrelevant. Like, okay, you can maybe pick up on the patterns, right? But it's like, all right. But every one of them needs that same fucking question, right? So it's like, you need to figure out how to interpret data, right? And it's like, wow, nice. So essentially, bullshit and bullshit and bullshit. Because it's like, no, look at this misinformation bullshit that definitely says that it's being interpreted the way that we should interpret it. This cherry-picked individual data, this blah, 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 and we should treat it as relevant. And you're like, no, that's not our studies. And it's like, that's exactly what your studies are doing. Now they're interpretable. They can be misinterpreted. They can only be interpreted one way. Why don't you give instructions? Why don't you show it off? What's going on? Why wouldn't you want that? Because then it's easy. Then your test is irrelevant. You see what I'm saying? If you can't ultimately make something digestible for all, you're fucking stupid people that want to seem big and smart. Which effectively means it's like the test is irrelevant. You don't know their intelligence. That intelligence is not anything other than like interpretable. And it's like, I have trouble distinguishing it because it's like, which one did you want? This is a biased study. This is a biased informational choice. Which particular one are you looking for? You think that there's only one right answer, But it's like, I can easily make multiple right answers. It all depends on the type of pattern recognition that we're looking for. Which one? Did you see why it's like, no, that's not relevant, he's just making something up. But it's like, actually, now I finally got you led to the water and you're drinking it. Ya horse. Now you can suddenly see why it's like, no, you're wrong. Deal with it. I can genuinely interpret this multiple patterned ways. There are multiple right answers. When they're like that, then it turns into, which one did you want? Which one did you want? Which one? I can easily make an answer fit. Which pattern did you want me to see? I see multiple patterns. Which one? Yeah, but you're wrong, because there's only the one that we think that we're looking for and want to be. And it's like, sorry, that's not the case. You know what I mean? Like, for real. There are many ways to do that. You know, like, that's it. It's like, look, it's a square with a squiggly and a circle, blah, 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 right? It's like, this one's a diamond-ish shape. And it's like, all right, okay, sure. But, like, are you looking for the internal side or the shape outline? Are you looking for the fill in gap shapes, you know, between like the circle and the squigglies and the diamond, this. And so like this in line, you mean like it's got this circle and a squiggly, whatever, and it's got the like fucking square, and this one is basically the same but it's tilted. But it's like, this means with these two puzzle pieces of the white area between the black, it looks like this. And so like this right here, that's D, C, and B. Both of those can be, or all three of them really, can be used if you do that as a pattern. Like, seriously, like, depending on how you decide to interpret it. They're all three of those are right answers. Which one did you want? It's like, which one? Like, this one's spaced exactly this amount. Is it the scanner got it wrong, or maybe it didn't? Like, is this one spaced slightly this way? And it's like, because this one's spaced like this, and this one's spaced like that, and this one's spaced like, I can technically say that this pattern right here says that it should work. D is now an answer. No, only R answers. Shut up. See, right there, got him, got him, got him. That easily, super simple. Like, no, and I see what you're doing, because it's pot calling the kettle black. That's how you're interpreting our results with these variables you think that we can use somehow and account for. See? Issues, you know what I mean? And it's like nobody really wants to discuss that. You know? So, anyways. Bye!